Good morning. The workshop for the City Commission for Thursday, July 10th, 2025 will come to order. Please join me in silencing your cell phones. Madam City Clerk, please call a roll.
Commissioner Perrine.
Here.
Commissioner Ashley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Martin.
Here.
Mayor Cleveland.
Here.
And Commissioner McGurk will have an excuse tardiness.
Touch with Commissioner McGurk. He'll be here momentarily. We're going to start on time, and he's fine with that as well. So, you see the room is full of city staff. And so it's, I've cleared this with Mr. Cowper. We encourage public participation. Public participation is now open, and that includes the city staff. Nice try, Vandermark. It's good posture, anyway. For those of you watching from home or viewing this at a later time, the room is full of senior city staff, and the preparation has been significant. There are 0 members of the city residents and businesses present, and so this will be recorded for their posterity. If there's any citizen who wishes to speak on this, on the budget, we'd be happy to have you come forward and give you your 3 minutes. Seeing none, public participation is closed. And I'll turn it over now to the city manager. Mr. Cowper, set us up for the day of budget.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Obviously, this presentation is a culmination of a lot of effort, and I'm going to immediately turn it over to Director Drury for introduction, and then we'll have some more conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Joe, we're anxious, so let's get started.
Okay.
A couple of the rules that you and I discussed ahead of time. You will allow questions as we go. Some of us are short-memoried, and so it'd be helpful. And if we find we're going to bog down spot, I'll help us move along. Okay?
Sounds good.
And there'll be times that you'll want to get assistance from department heads on technical questions back and forth. But for the most part, you're driving the train.
Yes,
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Thank you for joining us today. Over the next few hours, we will walk through the City Manager's proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. Our goals are to present the key elements of the proposal, gather your feedback and confirmation, discuss future budget considerations, and conclude with an outline of the next steps. This proposed budget is the result of extensive collaboration and effort, and I want to sincerely thank all the city departments for their hard work and dedication throughout this process. Special appreciation goes to Shaliza and Cindy from the Finance Department for their tireless work in preparing the budget materials before you today. Additionally, I'd like to recognize the city manager and the department directors for their significant time and effort spent scrubbing and massaging the proposed budget before you, refining it through many meetings to arrive at the version we are presenting today. Next slide. And with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Yes. Commission, one of the priorities for me in budgeting, and we've discussed this previously, is making sure that we connect our budget to our strategic priorities. And so we met several weeks ago and discussed strategic thoughts for the future. And we've reviewed previous strategic plans and other plans and issues, conversations, public input, all of those things. I've put before you a draft of the document I've been working on that outlines the strategic priorities and specific action items that I'm working on along with the department directors. And this document really kind of is forming the basis for the development of the budget. And so, again, this document is still in draft form, still trying to flesh out some thoughts and ideas here, so everything may or not be included in it, but it will give you a general idea of the direction that we're looking at strategically and that the budget is working to implement. So on the screen, you see the strategic priorities that were presented to you back in March when we met and discussed strategic plans. So the strategy is built around the city organization, neighborhood health and safety, communication and transparency, civic infrastructure, business development, downtown development, growth management and sustainability, city infrastructure, and economic development. You can see the strategic priorities there fleshed out a little bit more in a little bit more detail. The budget is touching on all of these strategic priorities to different grades. The ones that are highlighted, priority theme 1, 2, and 8, I think you'll find a lot of recurring themes throughout the budget touching on those areas specifically, and those are the areas that I think we need to focus our high priority on at this point, and so that will be reflected in the budget as we go through. And those three obviously are focusing on our organization and developing our organization so that it is capable of providing the level of services that are being demanded by our citizens, focusing on the health and safety of our residential neighborhoods and our business districts as well. And you'll see a lot about priority theme number 8 related to the appearance and function of our infrastructure. And really, I think this is probably the area of greatest priority for us going forward. So I wanted to just make that connection early in the presentation today about the relationship between the budget process and budget development and our strategic priorities. Joe.
Okay. So now we'll go over the assumptions that were used to guide development of the budget. In late May, the Volusia County Property Appraiser's Office provided preliminary assessment values. Property values are projected to increase by 7.58%, or approximately $532 million. That's up from the 6%.
Yeah, it was actually the 6% in the agenda.
Yes, that is up from the 6% that we presented to you in May in our one-on-one meetings. Property appraiser provides a preliminary estimate at the end of May, beginning of July. So we did pretty good using 6%. Came in slightly higher. The operating millage remains unchanged at 4.637 mils. No proposed increase. Other revenues are projected to increase by 3%. We applied a zero-based budgeting approach for both operating and capital expenses. Department directors were asked to request only what they truly needed to operate effectively next year and to advance the city's strategic priorities, rather than simply building on the prior year budget. A 15% increase in insurance premiums and a 3% increase in employee benefits, such as health insurance, were factored in. The city is currently in the midst of annual renewal process, so we're hopeful the rates will come within those percentages. A placeholder for wage adjustments was included to account for the implementation of the compensation study and ongoing negotiations for the police and fire union contracts. We also budgeted for attrition in the police department. While the number of authorized positions and associated funding remains unchanged, we've accounted for savings due to expected vacancies throughout the year. That's something new this year. Finally, allocated overhead, which is the amount the general fund receives from other departments for shared services, was reduced from $2.3 million to $1.3 million. The methodology for charging departments outside the general fund was also revised to reflect the annual support provided by functions such as city manager, city attorney, city clerk, finance, HR, and information technology. I'm going to touch on reserves.
Joe, before you go on,
Yes.
could you go back to the other slide for
Yes.
a second? since you've got a bonus from the 6% assumption to the 7.58 from a revenue increase perspective, did you contemplate any rollback? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And does this now, with the increase in revenue differential between 6 and 7.5%, does that provide you a surplus, and what would you plan to do with that?
Yes, that generates about an additional $450,000 in revenue, and in discussions with the city manager, the recommendation is to fund the 7 new positions that were presented as option 2, which was the focus on public works.
So the answer to your question, yes, we did consider rollback, and certainly that is something that you can consider. We've presented to you as we go through this a balanced budget and a budget that lives off the growth of property value and subsequent tax receipts. The city is growing. The demand for city services is increasing. And we are in a good position where we can maintain a consistent millage rate and improve and add to our level of services based on the growth that we are seeing. So that is the philosophy of presenting this budget to you.
Thank you. Are you opposed, just philosophically, are you opposed to rollback, or is that something that's in your head? And have you had experience, have you done that previous places?
Certainly. So, no, I'm not opposed to rollback whatsoever, but again, what I would emphasize to you is New Smyrna Beach is a growing community. We have significant infrastructure needs. We have significant deficiencies in certain service areas that do not match the expectations of our citizens. And if we want to meet the expectations of our citizens, we will have to improve on our level of service. And so we are working hard to make sure that we can provide the best services for the most reasonable cost possible and maintain a consistent millage rate so people can plan their personal finances as well.
I believe you. Please do that. Thank you. Commissioner Perrine.
Can you go back to your priorities, a couple slides to what, okay, right there. So thank you for letting us pause here on this, because I think the mayor's question is huge, and I have a few thoughts on this. And in our briefing on Monday, Mr. Kaupner and I talked about this. At the time, I thought it was 6%, and the issues if our property values don't continue on this trend year after year. And I liked his answer. He had, I said, what are we going to do? Because you just hired all these new people, and now we're not seeing this property tax increase. And by using this money for staff, that's an ongoing every single year expense versus a rollback where it's done. Now, I loved what he said. I think he's a very smart man when it comes to budgeting. He said we would cut back on expenses and cut back maybe on labor and drill down and just ride it out if we didn't have this extra income. But I'm seeing a little bit of this. I did a line item analysis, as we all did, in here, where we've had some shortages on revenues in certain departments. And it's not always easy to cut expenses by attrition. You know, you have to look at the labor, and sometimes you have to let go staff or move them to areas where we've got some of that probably in here a little bit, and we'll get to that later. But people say on here, and this is for public, how was your June? My June was filled with kind of messy citizen calls, and it was probably higher than normal, and I really don't know why. So I love his 3 priorities here. The first one, customer service, because I do think we have a huge need there, because a lot of the calls I had to do with the public just not knowing to call staff, or they're not getting the answers they want from staff, and that's normal. If you don't get what you want, then you just keep going up the ladder. And so I think we have room for educating our staff there. And I love that always health and safety. And then our infrastructure. How many times have we sat up here and said before we add things to what we have that we take care of what we already have? So you nailed it. And I love your response just now on this, but it's things that we need to think about. Do we want the rollback in case we don't grow? Can we move some of these positions in a couple of the departments that the revenues are short and we're not seeing improvements in revenues? And we'll get to all that versus hiring that new people. Maybe we can do a little bit of both. Maybe we can roll back some and use some for labor. But that labor is going to be there year after year. And that's what concerns me, and I really appreciate that question.
Commissioner Martin.
I'm just curious at this point, you're talking about the things that we need to improve, and I notice, cleaning up and maintaining what we already have, but to which particular services and cleanups are you referring?
Okay, let me answer a couple of different questions here. So the budget process has been going on for months, and the department heads have been significantly involved in this process. They have submitted to me and the finance team what they need to operate their individual departments and functions and service expectations. The needs presented are this big.
Of course.
What is being presented to you is this big.
Yeah.
So myself and the executive team have gone through all of the requests, and we have systematically evaluated where we are as an organization and the priorities that we believe you and the community have, and we have matched the available resources with those priorities. So I can tell you, as we go forward in New Smyrna Beach over the next 5 years, and I expect that the growth will continue here, and I expect that our economy will continue to be strong and that we'll see growth in revenue. We will need more police officers on the street, unquestionably. More police officers on the street means more supervision and leadership in the department. The same in fire stations. We will need more fire stations. We will need growth there. And as we grow in those departments, then we will have to increase our administrative capacity to support that. We will have to have people to do payroll. We will have to have people to do IT. And I sound like I'm lecturing. I'm just trying to set the groundwork here. We've gone through and prioritized so that we can grow strategically, methodically, and meet the needs of the city and the citizens strategically. So I could present you a budget today and say, to get us where we need to be, we need to add many, many positions, and we need to do many, many, many things, and we need to increase our millage rate significantly to get us to that point. That obviously is not what we're doing here. We are very strategically biting the apple and growing as we need to. We're not taking on more than we can sustain. And just as Commissioner Prince said, if there does happen to be a downturn in the economy, then we can react very swiftly to that. You will see that we are budgeting for the first time in the history of New Smyrna Beach that I'm aware of. We are budgeting permanent reserves, and we will have very healthy reserves that will enable us to come through any kind of economic downturn that may be. We are fully aware of certain revenues in at least one of the enterprise operations that we have our eyes on very strongly, that we need to watch, and that we may need to figure out a different way of doing things, let's say. But we're aware of those things. And so this budget is giving you, again, very methodical growth where at least I think it needs to be focused so we can grow, respond to the demands, and not overdo things.
Okay, what I was really looking for is, it sounds like the services that you want to enhance are the police and fire.
Well-
And I was looking, there are things from just cleaning up
ma'am.
the city
So-
and sweeping the streets or.
Right, and
Yeah,
I
a lot of-
apologize. What you will see in this year's budget is a focus on infrastructure and maintenance of infrastructure. So we have spent a lot of time talking about transportation. We've spent a lot of time talking about stormwater management, keeping our canals and ditches clean, making sure that our basic things like our stop signs and street signs are straight and readable and present, that there are pavement markings, and that our parks are safe and clean, all those kind of things. And you're going to see in this budget a lot of focus in the area of public works and infrastructure and maintenance. We have lots of facilities, lots of buildings. Those buildings have to be maintained. It is expensive to put in air conditioners in Florida, beachside in particular, and we need a strategy for dealing with that maintenance. We need a strategy for resurfacing our roads, and you'll see extra money being put into those efforts as well. So that is the focus of this budget, is
Okay, well,
infrastructure.
that's what I was trying to determine, is like, what are the highest priorities?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
cannot do everything at once, so what are we doing? And for me, cleaning up the streets is low-hanging fruit and makes a big difference in the appearance of the city. Obviously, we need police and fire, but so I'm just revolving around, since we can't do everything at the same time, what are we looking for? Where's our low-hanging fruit? And what are our number 1A, 1B, and 1C priorities as opposed to the list of priorities?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is just a great opportunity, and you've said powerful things. I'm watching the staff watch you lead the way, and I appreciate that. And so just as a tone setter, you've said a couple really powerful statements, and you've got this great experience and your first budget cycle here. Kevin, can you talk about how small cities operate versus how big cities operate? You've been in both, and those differences. And specifically, if we do the same things we've always done with the same number of people, and we keep adding people as the city grows and do it the same way, I think we will pave a path to perdition. I favor business process reengineering and doing things differently. As you described, we have to figure out how to do things differently, otherwise we'll run off the tracks. And so whether it's public works or development services, share with me your essence, or share with us, share with the body, your essence of, hey, we do good work and there's always room for improvement. There's nobody casting dispersions up here about this amazing staff that you've got, and I've watched them thrive under your leadership for the last several months. But how much focus and time are you gonna put into doing things differently than we've done them before? And that's worth an investment. That's worth an investment in our people, in getting somebody who might advise us of what innovations are available, and your experience from other places comes into play here. I don't mind breaking China, and you're the guy that can do it. You've got this great technique. So simply growing, most residents don't want us to grow. They want us, they'd like us to be this, like we used to be, right? And so when they hear growth, they're gonna go crazy. So that you're preparing us for growth is a good move. But at the same time, know that everybody wants what they've got right now. They don't want it to change. And so as we must grow because 1,000 people a day are coming to Florida and New Smyrna is getting their fair share, where are your target areas of business process re-engineering so that we don't just do it like we did when we were small New Smyrna and just did it on steroids now that we're bigger? Where's your head on what things we would do differently and using your experience from the past? Long-winded question, philosophical, but I'd love to hear your piece on that. And I think that citizens will be greatly relieved. It's the counterbalance to just saying we're going to be growing. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I think ultimately the answer there is we are going to grow. We have to grow responsibly and in a sustainable manner, and I think that we can certainly accomplish that. So, I think, and the department heads, I think, will tell you this. We've introduced a lot of new ways of thinking and new ways of doing things and doing things a little bit more strategically. And just for example, the thought process on public works and infrastructure that we're talking about today as being an emphasis. And I mentioned Tuesday evening at the meeting, we are working right now on thoughts, plans to address our transportation needs in particular. And the obvious area is State Route 44 and what we need to do there. We are thinking of that, and we are planning for that, and we are preparing for that budget. At the same time, we have existing infrastructure that we have to maintain, and we have probably scattershot a little bit of resurfacing here and a little bit of resurfacing there, and not really made much of an impact. Number one, we haven't put enough money toward that, and number two, we haven't thought about it strategically. We've probably hit on what was hot today, what was politically expedient to do, and thought about, everybody gets a little bit, that kind of strategy. The strategy going forward is going to be different. We will strategically resurface roads based on the need, but we won't only resurface roads. When we're resurfacing roads, we'll look at the entire picture of the road. We'll look at the sidewalks. We'll look at ADA compliance. We'll look at street signs, stop signs. We'll look at street lights. We'll look at maintenance of landscape. Whatever comes up to go into an area and make an impact and make an improvement. You can't do it piecemeal and one thing at a time. And the Public Works Director and his team are working hard in that regard to develop those plans so that we can do that strategically. The same with the maintenance of our facilities. We have not done a good job planning for the maintenance of our facilities. The guys in Public Works are doing the best they can. They're running around like chickens with their heads cut off trying to respond and react to what is breaking this week. And certainly we're at a point in time where we have the magnitude of facilities that we need to give some thought and process to how we're going to maintain that. And so these guys, and Brinkley's over there, unfortunately, he's so great, he's been hired as a director elsewhere, and that's just part of developing a great staff. But, you know, we're strategically looking at our buildings, looking at our air conditioning systems, looking at our roofing systems, and planning for their replacement after their useful life has been completed. We're not waiting for something to catastrophically fail and then have to run out and spend a lot of money to do that. So, you know, we're doing a lot of things differently. And it's not just, you know, David in Public Works can't do everything by himself. And so we're organizing teams to come together. You know, one of the things I've been talking about recently is I just don't understand the transportation system beach side. I don't understand the system of four-way stops and two-way stops and what we're necessarily trying to accomplish with our traffic patterns and how we're responding to heavy traffic days and lots of tourists coming in. What exactly are we doing? And then something happens and we've got police all over the place trying to direct traffic. And it, you know, so David can't fix that problem by himself. Police chief can't fix that project by himself. But together with our parking and mobility, our police, our public works, our engineers, our planners, and community input, I think we can address some of those issues and concerns and think proactively about what we're doing. So that is part of building that high-performing organization so that we're not operating departments in silos, so they're not only focused on what they're doing, but they're also focused on what the city needs to do and what their part in that is. And that's, you know, building cooperation between departments. It starts at the director level, and I think we've made a lot of headway in that regard. This team is very cohesive. But more importantly, it happens at the ranks way below the department heads, and those guys need to understand what each other does. Jo, for example, you know, she's taken her staff all over the city and visited with departments and had departments come to her and do presentations and say, this is what we do as a department, so that her finance team can understand what the heck all these other people out there do that they've never met, never seen, don't know what they do. But that connection has now been made so that these folks in finance that are doing accounting and bookwork and all that kind of stuff, they understand what's happening in code enforcement and public works and in policing and where that money is being spent. It's little things like that that really bring a lot to developing the organization and having people understand the bigger picture.
Just want to say thank you for prioritizing maintaining what we have rather than have demolition by neglect and building something new. So many thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. And to go further, Mayor, you asked about, you know, budgeting experience elsewhere, and I've dealt with some big budgets, over $300 million in Dothan, for example. And what I can tell you is each city is different, and the issues in each city are different. And it's my job as city manager to understand what those issues are and apply the correct amount of resources to that. Just a little example in Dothan, you know, Dothan is a much different city than New Smyrna Beach. There's a very large inner city population living in very poor housing conditions with very limited services, poor infrastructure, lots of crime, all of those things that you would expect to see in a large city, inner city. And the city had grown and expanded outward, and the resources and money expanded outward as well. The city was left with significant infrastructure resources in the inner city that weren't being utilized. They were completely neglected. And so the choice is, do you just follow the population and build new resources? We made the decision that we were going to reinvest in the city, in the inner city, and utilize that existing infrastructure that the taxpayer had already bought and paid for. And to do that, to do those community functions and rebuild those assets, like a $15 million investment in a football stadium, a $15 million investment in a water park, a $5+ million investment in a baseball, softball facility, building new buildings for flag football, which had become very popular. The first thing we had to do was make sure people felt safe to go there. People didn't want to go to those facilities because they didn't feel safe there, because frankly, it wasn't safe. There were gunshots in the neighborhoods next door. And so the priority there was, hey, we got to make this safe. Police, what do we need to do to make this safe? Code enforcement, what do we need to do to get rid of the crack houses and all that stuff? So these teams all worked together to that end, to improve those neighborhoods, stabilize those neighborhoods, make those neighborhoods safe, so that we could then reinvest. And we created a parks patrol division in police. Their sole focus was on making sure that the parks were safe. So that was the issue there. That's not the issue here. It's different. So the long answer to your long question is, we've got to focus our resources where the needs and the demands are, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here.
I'm grateful for that long and detailed information. I think you have focus on the what very, very well. I'd like to apply and dig at a later time, not during budget cycle, on the how we do our business. And that is where the magic is. That's where the money is. It's if we do it the same way every time, and you've mentioned a couple things we're going to do differently, but I suggest that in every department there are different business processes that small New Smyrna did the same way. We issued whatever we do over in development services, we're probably done it the same way forever and a day. It takes a wrecking ball to come in and say, we're going to do it differently. And I don't know whether we find an example of a neighboring city or we call in a business process engineer and say, hey, how can you get a spaghetti diagram out that says, here's why it takes you so long. Here's why it takes you this many people. Have you considered doing it this way? So love to delve into that another time. Joe, you're on slide 2. You're doing so well, and we've expended 40 minutes. So thank you for, I think this is a good foundation setting and a necessary one. We won't be this slow, but it is so good to see that the strategic priorities are woven in tightly to the budget. I think we've not done that as well in the past, and this is a very nice step forward.
Okay, we'll talk about reserves now, which have been formally budgeted for the first time this year. While the city has always maintained reserves in its bank accounts, the specific amounts set aside to meet the Commission's reserve targets were not previously reflected in the budget itself. In this proposed budget, we've made the change. There's a new revenue line item, funds carry forward from the prior year. It's been added to show the available resources, and there's been a corresponding expense line added, required reserves, to reflect the amount being set aside for future needs. This budget change does contribute to some of the large increases you'll see today. The fund balance targets set by the Commission range from 25% for the general fund to 15% for the airport and marina fund. GFOA recommends a minimum reserve of 2 months, which is just about 17%. As you heard on Tuesday night, the auditors recommend 3 to 4 months, or 25 to 33%, given our vulnerability as a coastal community to large unpredictable expenses such as hurricanes. All of the funds, with the exception of the building fund, currently have sufficient financial resources to meet these targets. Also wanted to talk about structurally balanced budget. As required by statute, the city must adopt a balanced budget where total revenues equal total expenses. But just as important is ensuring that the budget is structurally balanced, meaning it is built on a foundation of long-term financial sustainability. So a structurally balanced budget ensures that reoccurring revenues cover reoccurring expenses, and that one-time revenues, such as money you might get from an asset sale or bond proceeds, are used only for non-reoccurring needs. And I'm pleased to report that the proposed budget meets both of these goals. It is not only balanced in terms of revenues and expenditures, but it's also structurally sound. The next two slides provide an overview of the proposed budget by fund. The total proposed budget for fiscal year 2026 is $199.4 million. We're going to get into more details throughout the morning. This just gives you a high-level snapshot. You go to the next page. Yeah. $169.5 million in revenues and expenses are in the budget, and then there's $29.9 million in interfund transfers between the variety of funds. So back in May, we provided a draft version of the 2026 budget to the Commission for review and preparation for this workshop. Since then, we've continued to refine the budget, and several updates have been made. In summary, the total proposed budget has increased from $181.3 million to $199.4 million. This change is primarily due to $8.9 million increase in funds carried forward from the prior year. Now that the audit's been completed, we could finalize those numbers. $1.4 million in additional grant revenues, a $480,000 increase in property tax revenue, as we talked about earlier, a $2.1 million increase across various other revenue sources, and a $5.1 million increase in transfers between the funds. These adjustments reflect updated information and a continued effort to align the budget with the city's strategic priorities. The expense side has increased by the same amount, and the key drivers: we've added $5.1 million to the interfund transfers, $5.1 million in reserves, reflecting the formal budgeting process of reserve targets, $1.3 million increase in wages, benefits, and pension costs, $9 million increase in capital project funding, $418,000 increase in operating expenses, and a $750,000 increase in CRA development assistance and incentives. Now we're going to get into the taxable values.
Can we go back for just a second,
Sure.
please? Biggest possible picture down to the smallest. My memory is not perfect, but for the last three budget cycles, what I've seen at this stage of the game is a number closer to 100 million, 110 million, 120 million. And I know that by year's end, it was a different amount, a higher amount. To start the year at nearly double of what my memory is perplexing. And lest the citizens think this is all representative in growth of our staff and growth of services, is there a different, there's certain stuff you brought forward through the year. Hey, we've discovered this money in this bucket here that hasn't been accounted for. Can you help us walk through where we got from what I remember to be $110, $120 million budget to what is nearly a $200 million budget? What are those buckets that are additional? How do we reconcile what would look like on a bar graph or a line graph this amazing leap? We're going to have that explained fulsomely to the public. Help us with that, Joe.
The largest increase is in the budgeted reserves. So as we mentioned, the money has been in the bank, so there's been significant dollars set aside in the bank to meet your target reserves. Those have never been reflected in the budget, so that's driving the majority of the increase, putting the revenue side, the money that's in the bank, and then the reserve for rainy day funds. So the It's always been there, it just was never transparent in the budget. Best practice says you put that in the budget so that you know what resources are available to you in the event you need them. Another driver is your capital. Capital is going up about 9 million, and that's funded primarily with grants. Things like Corbin Park, stormwater improvements, historic West Side improvements, some other things that are funded by the general fund would be your vehicle replacement program, your street resurfacing program.
Have all of these items been in the budget previously, or are there new items that are in there? I mean, not asking it well, but are each of those categories you just mentioned previously been listed, or are their values just increased so significantly?
The reserves and the associated funds carry forward have never been in the budget.
Have never been in the budget. That represents
Correct.
several $1 million.
Yes, probably close to, you could come up with a number, but I'm going to say around 50 million.
50 million.
Yeah, we
So
can get an
that's-
exact
that's-
number.
That's helpful that we point that out.
Yes.
I think. Okay, Commissioner Perrine.
Yes, maybe I can help with this. One of the majority of the questions we have from our citizenry is, why did your budget go from 120 million to 200 million when our population didn't grow that much? But if you look at the reserves, you've only got an increase on there for 5 million, and then the capital 9 million, that's only 14 million. So you're seeing 50, and we still have quite a bit of a difference here from 120 to 200 million. So I guess what we're looking for is why, did those numbers not get reported in our reviews in the last couple of years, which I know you've had some money that hasn't. So maybe that would be a little bit helpful so that we can relay that back to the citizens, that this wasn't a jump due to population. I know that relationship can't be looked at, but they do. So there's where we have it. They're like, we didn't grow that fast, so why the jump so much in budget?
Yes.
We will
I mean,
this will be a big deal in the
Yeah,
public.
and it may be perhaps a little bit hard to understand, but the bottom line is we're putting in the budget all of the reserves. So if we can get that sheet back up there. So we've got,
Make the presentation back up.
but that's the key difference is just budgeting those reserves. That money has been there. It's been in the ledger. It just hasn't been reflected in the budget. And so personally, my philosophy is, and I'm confident Joe shares this philosophy, we need to budget that reserve. We need to show that reserve and those funds, and then we need to invest those funds wisely so that they can grow and our reserves can grow concurrently with the budget in future years. But that is your big difference.
And I
Can
think
you go
is
to the slide where it says 5% reserves on the increase? Right.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this increase is simply between the draft budget that was provided to you in May and the proposed budget in front of you now.
Okay.
I think as we go further into the presentation, you'll see year-over-year comparisons where that reserve amount will jump out and be very evident. And the reserve is budgeted in a variety of funds besides the general fund.
Any of my other colleagues? Yes, ma'am.
Does showing the reserves more or less by department have an impact on our credit rating? Is it more transparent to any potential?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you're familiar with the bond rating process, these are the big wigs up in New York, Standard & Poor's, Moody's. Your reserves are probably one of the principal functions that they look at in giving you a bond rating. I mean, it's essential to getting a good bond rating.
Thank you. So that improves our public public offering, if you will.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you. So just for layman's clarification, the way you're doing the budget today is not the way the budget has done previously, from going from roughly 120 million to roughly 200 million in the total budget for the city.
Correct.
We're not comparing apples to apples if you do that. And the vast majority of that increase is simply the way that the budget is presented. There's things left out in the budget, though done correctly in a proper way. You've changed to reflect the entirety of general funds, emergency funds, some other funds.
Correct.
That have brought up that to 200 million.
Correct.
Thank you.
Another one, our capital projects has increased significantly. Is that what I'm understanding? The stuff that Jesse's doing is way higher than it had been previous years?
Yeah, we've got a lot of unallocated fund balance that we are allocating to capital projects. So this is one-time money that we have available that we can spend on capital projects. And that's, very good for us. That's a pay-as-you-go kind of approach to capital projects. So we can do some pretty significant capital projects without worrying about having to go and borrow money from local banks or go to the bond market for something larger.
Yeah.
So, those monies are one time, they'll be spent, and then they're gone.
I appreciate that. It's just my opinion, and I'll get consensus of our group. I think the comm plan for this big of a change is going to be necessary, a robust communications plan. And, Phil and Ava and the whole team leading the way, you and Joe leading the way, we're going to have some splaining to do outside this room. And it's probably worthy of a regular commission meeting explanation. A top level, we don't want to make everybody, grind them down in the minutia, but we certainly owe them a fulsome explanation, and far and wide as we can, because there are going to be some that are just going to come unglued because they don't get it. They just know the number, and the number's, holy cow, what did this Cowper guy do? Thanks. Keep going, Joe. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about property values over the next couple of slides. As mentioned earlier, property values are estimated to increase by 7.58%, 532 million. New construction contributed to 103 million. That's 26 million less than the prior year. Annexations added 769,000, which is 572,000 lower than last year. The majority of the increase, 428 million, came from existing properties. It's also important to note that homesteaded properties are generally capped at 3% annual increase. It's tied to consumer price index, while non-homesteaded properties are not subject to the cap, allowing for a greater growth in taxable value.
Hey, Joe, while you're there, can you might you know the total number of properties that are homesteaded and the total number that are not? That's usually a good number to get out there.
Yes, on the next slide, if you look at the chart on the right, you can see 11,000 parcels are homesteaded, 7,900 parcels are not homesteaded. That's just looking at residential. So 60% of your properties are homesteaded. And then if you look at the graph on the left, you can see the property values come primarily from residential, 84%, with 11% being commercial and industrial, and the remainder being agriculture, vacant land, and institutional properties. The proposed millage rate for the fiscal year 2026 is remaining at 4.637. The general fund is projected to receive an additional $2.2 million in property tax revenue, and the CRA is expected to receive an additional $225,000. These increases are driven by growth in taxable property values, which comes from the new construction, annexation, and the reassessment of existing properties. So property tax revenue has grown from $18.2 million in fiscal year '22 to a projected $33.2 million in fiscal year 2026. This increase reflects a combination of millage rate adjustments and rising property values over the last 5 years. It also mirrors the city's population growth and development activity. As New Smyrna Beach continues to evolve from a small coastal town into a more dynamic and growing community, the demand for services and infrastructure has increased, and that's driving the need for a stronger revenue base to support that growth. This graph compares the operating millage rates across Volusia County and its municipalities. New Smyrna Beach's rate at 4.637 is moderate compared to the other cities in the county. This positions the city's effort to balance affordability for taxpayers with the need to fund essential services and infrastructure. Maintaining a competitive rate helps support growth while keeping New Smyrna Beach an attractive place to live, work, and invest.
Quick comment.
Yeah,
Quick
comment.
comment on that. That millage rate, or where we stack in line with that. You know, I just want to say that we're very close to Daytona Beach Shores. We were always second. Ormond has fallen to that spot. But considering the adjustments that we've had to do over the last few years, considering what has happened with expenses and how far we were behind because of the historical way that we did our budget and had a reputation for, we didn't tax much, but you didn't get much. And us having to go through this transition of the quality of life and level of service that the new residents who have come in over the past 10, 15 years has gone through. I think it's phenomenal that we're sitting at number 4 and right neck and neck with number 3. So overall, although we've had some millage rate increases, which is the holy grail, I'm very happy to where we are and what we've been able to maintain over the time in dealing with the drastic increase in expenses. So I just want to point that out, that to staff and everybody who's been around doing these things, these budgets, it's something that I look at holistically, you know, from a bird's eye view, and I say, good, we've done well there. We haven't done bad, we haven't done poorly, we're not in a head-scratching moment, and so I want to just stop and recognize that for a second. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for doing that. It's worthy. It's a big slide. Public watches this slide because we love comparisons. So as we look through it, similarly sized cities like DeLand, like Ormond, like Port Orange, this is good stuff for us to look over. Commissioner Perrine.
Yes, I think we've done a great job too. We had a tax increase last year, but we had a lot of hurricane expenses. You know, we bought a lot of equipment. We bought 2 new fire trucks. We bought some things for the dredging that we were relying on other counties. We had some major things, and people to have to work those things. The other thing is that I want to mention, you mentioned our revenues, you know, are from growth, new construction, annexation. We're getting limited on annexation, and we have pockets throughout the city that haven't annexed, and a lot of them don't want to annex for a lot of reasons. We have a downward turn of, I think I remember reading in here, 500,000 in building permits. So those people that say slow the growth, well, we're down in building permits. You got to have money somehow from either taxes, building, annexation, growth to pay all this. So it's been a challenge for us up here because we hear these things and we hear these people out there spewing, slamming at us. But it's like, how are we going to get the money to pay for that? You know, here we are, we're New Smyrna Beach. I don't know too many people around here that don't want to live here. It is the charm. Whether we're growing or not, it's still the most desirable city that you could ever want to live in. I've been to these other places and worked and played, and this is our home. We're proud to show 4.63, but to get that and to maintain that this year like you guys have done, we look for someone like you, Mr. Cowper and Joanne, that could come back and not give us the spectrum this huge to decide what our needs are. We trusted you to do that, and this is, you're not asking for an increase this year. Hats off to you. Look at this, people. We have done a fabulous job, and thank you.
Anybody else? I appreciate the clarity on the slow. I've seen those signs, slow the growth. I thought that was a birth control initiative, or or some kind of a East German show us your papers before you can come in type of initiative that somebody's trying to start in town. So I appreciate that clarity. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is the proposed org chart for 2026. In 2025, we had 348.5 positions, planning to add 7 new positions. The new roles, as the city manager mentioned, are strategically aligned with the 3 key themes prioritized in this year's budget. In terms of overall staffing, 43% of our positions are in public safety, with the remaining 57% distributed fairly evenly across general government, operations, leisure services, and public works. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager to go through the specific positions he's recommending.
Yes, thank you, Joe. So again, these positions, these are fully funded in the proposed budget without any increase in millage. So, and again, what we've tried to do is make sure that our available resources in the city are capable of providing the level of service that our citizens expect. And I'm going to start talking about the public works positions first. So we have a GIS analyst position. We have 4 foreman positions and 1 equipment operator position. So this is the area that I see our biggest deficiency in our service levels. When compared to the expectations that we have for the work that we want them to do. So, you know, in asking David, the Public Works Director, you know, what resources do you need to do the job that you're being asked to do, this is at least part of what he came back with. And I think this is very well thought out on his part. And I'm proud that we're able to recommend this and hopefully get it done. So David, in particular, and as director, and also Mr. Brinkley as assistant director, these guys, I would say, are very much working directors at this point in time. They are out in the field all the time. They're in the ditch with the guys. They are doing a lot in the field, and that's great, and I appreciate that they are that involved. The end result of that, though, is that they don't have the time to think strategically the way that I need them to do and the way that I think that you need them to do to get the work done that needs to be done. And so if we want a quality resurfacing program, quality maintenance program, quality fleet program, all of those things, that's going to take some thoughtful management and direction and leadership to get that done. And so I want to provide that ability for those department leaders to do that function. And so what we're proposing here is that each of the major divisions in Public Works, building, streets, parks, and stormwater, have a foreman. If you're familiar with the term foreman, that is a working supervisor, somebody that is leading a group of, a crew, a group of workers to get things done. And so we're looking for a building maintenance foreman, street foreman, parks foreman, and stormwater foreman. Those are the positions that we are recommending. The stormwater foreman would be paid out of the stormwater fee fund. The three foremans would be paid out of the general fund. But I think this is critical in the structure of that department to provide that level of leadership to our crews so that they can get the job done and get the job done well and efficiently. And I think that is the big thing, the big benefit there. The last one on the list there, the equipment operator 2. So this is an area that I see we need some significant improvement is street sweeping. We currently contract that program out, and it, I think they do as well as they can for what we pay, but we need to put more resources there from not only a cleanliness standpoint, but for also an environmental standpoint. I mean, the stuff on the streets is going to end up in our canals and clogging up our canals and creating problems for us further down the line. So we are proposing to bring street sweeping in-house as opposed to contracting it out. We're not proposing that we do that in one great leap. We're proposing that we do that over a couple of years, and this year we're going to start out on a small scale. We're proposing to purchase a smaller street sweeper that we can use in tight areas, probably down at the beach and on some of the narrower streets in the historic areas, and then utilize a contractor to continue with the street sweeping on the other streets. So, of course, if we have a street sweeper, we need somebody to operate that. And we are proposing to buy that street sweeper from solid waste funds.
Correct.
Right? So that will not come out of the general fund. That will come out of money that we have in the fund balance of the solid waste budget. So next year, assuming that this is a successful launch of this program this year, next year we'll propose that we purchase a bigger street sweeper. That will probably be at least twice as much money as you're seeing here, and we will likely need another operator for that too. But this is, I think, as we talked about, methodically and strategically doing things. This is a good introduction for us in that regard. And then also in Public Works is a GIS analyst. We need to be smart about the work that we're doing. GIS is a very, very powerful tool. It is an underutilized tool in New Smyrna Beach. We have one GIS analyst right now that is in our engineering division. He does a great job, but we can do more in that area. And certainly as Public Works is planning their work programs and where are the streets that need to be resurfaced, where are the street signs, where are potholes, where, all of those things, there's technology that can help us with that. And so we're proposing the GIS analyst in the Public Works Department.
Just a quick question. Is that the GIS position that Director Ray has been trying to get for 2 or 3 years?
I believe it is, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
The final position that I'm recommending here is a natural resources manager. So, this has been something that I've heard a lot from you all, maybe from little different perspectives, but I think we're all getting to the same point here. I've heard a lot of this from the public as well. So, we are rightfully undertaking a program to purchase a lot of property for conservation for a number of reasons. With those property acquisitions comes responsibility, and we need somebody to manage those properties and to continue moving forward with the program to acquire additional property, and perhaps not rely so much on the taxpayers to purchase those properties. So we're looking for somebody that can not only manage the resources that we have effectively, but also somebody that can go out and find financial resources, grants, partnerships, whatever the case may be, to acquire additional properties. Looking for somebody here that can work with our Turnbull Bay group that is working effectively to acquire properties. I'm also looking for somebody that can bring a different element to some of the infrastructure projects that we as a city do, and some of the development projects that we review and ultimately decide to approve or deny. So with that, I mean, if we're building a project, maybe that's a building, maybe that's a new park, maybe that's something on the waterfront. We, at the present time, I think, lack that element of somebody from a perspective of, what is good for the environment, what is good for sustainability, what is good for keeping, resiliency, I think is kind of a buzzword word right now. But are we building smart, and are we building projects that can withstand hurricanes and that are built utilizing forward-thinking stormwater management approaches, things of that nature. So in my view, as we build projects and we do infrastructure projects, we, the city, should set the standard for the community. We should go above and beyond what we're demanding of other people. And that's what I want for us, is to build resilient projects. And so this person will bring that perspective to our current team of planners, engineers, and the like. And then also, as we saw this, I think, in Deering Park and other developments, this is a person that can help us in that plan review process and come at it from that more environmental perspective of, how can we encourage development that is ultimately sustainable. And I think that's what we all want. We may come at it from a different angle and a different approach, but that is what I envision for this position. So I may be looking for Superman or Superwoman here to do all of this work, but that gives you a general idea of kind of the broader scope that we're looking at. And I would house this position right now in the city manager office, somebody that would report to me directly, similar to the parking and mobility director today. I would see it long-term branching out into a different department, but I would house this currently with our capital project director and his team, and that way I think I can kind of closely monitor and make sure we're getting what we need out of that position. So those are the 7 positions we're recommending, and I think you can see how we're concentrating that to achieve particular strategic objectives.
Thank you, sir. Comments and questions by the commission, Commissioner Perrine.
So thank you for that. I read last night on social media where we're buying this land and putting it in conservation, and for us to ask for this position, they didn't understand it because it's conservation. They said, you buy it, we don't need money for that, which is totally wrong. And I'll explain why. Because we keep buying land in conservation, we've got to maintain it. Right now we're relying on a board to tell us when the creeks are full or it needs cleaned out, or the trees are down. We don't timber the land that we have to prevent forest fire. We don't timber or clean out the underbrush that it takes for conservation. Environment is important to all of us, so it takes someone to go out there and tell us that. We can't rely on a board or one or two people that are doing this for free to be our eyes and ears. That underbrush has to be cleared out because that waxy underbrush, if that catches on fire, then we've got issues. So we're trying to be preventative. When we have homeless camps on some land that we're getting ready to purchase, that person could say, walk that land and say, hey, we have an issue, call code enforcement, call whatever. If this is county land, the county should take care of that. We need a go-between. Is this a miracle worker for all of us? Maybe. But that's what I envision is our needs. To say that we're going to be buying all this land to do nothing with it, that's a problem. We have mosquitoes. It needs to be maintained. We've got to have access to the creeks and all of that. So I just wanted to put that out there so people know this isn't somebody that's just like for climate change or something like that, that I get, why are you doing that? It has nothing to do with that. Although, you know, we have needs in our community. Our weather patterns are different. 500-year floods have been happening. It's important that we have somebody looking at all of this. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
I
really
think it's
good.
an important job.
Appreciate that. Really good input. Commissioner Ashley.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Valley. That's very important. All you have to do is look at what happened in LA when they neglected to take care of the brush in Pacific Palisades and surrounding areas. Some citizens have been asking me about Daring Park in particular. Do we have a project manager? Because that thing is so big. Do we need a dedicated individual that just babysits that thing forever? I don't know whether we have one or not. I'm asking.
Well, I mean, we don't have an individual project manager. We have a team of people that are working on ensuring that that development occurs the way that it has been approved to occur. So from Director, Planning and Development Director Corbin, all the way down through his staff, including our stormwater experts and engineers. We have a team of people overseeing that development, and this position will be a key part of that team. I don't envision needing just one individual to oversee this project.
Okay.
I envision that we need the expertise of a variety of staff people to assist with that, from planners to engineers to natural resource managers. I think we need all of that expertise, and you're not going to get that in just one person. So we'll obviously we'll monitor that development as it's happening. I think it will be phased such that we can do that with the resources that we have currently and that we're proposing here. One more point I did want to make on this that I didn't bring up before, and just an example, we have our city engineer who's a exceedingly experienced and talented engineer overseeing our hazard mitigation program, which is the acquisition of property for flood avoidance, and he works a lot on that program. And that program involves not only acquiring property, but elevating homes and things of that nature. And it's very commendable that he does that. That has kind of grown and become a very significant part of his workload. And that shouldn't be that way. This is a highly talented, highly experienced, highly expensive city engineer, and we need to utilize his talents more effectively. And I need the engineer focused on some of the other initiatives that we talked about. How do we plan our transportation system to meet our future demands? How do we plan our stormwater management system to meet our future needs? Those are the things that the city engineer needs to be concentrating on and leading those efforts. This person, as the natural resource manager, I see taking over that hazard mitigation program. We're going to focus that effort on property acquisition as opposed to elevating structures as we have done in the past. We're going to focus on acquisition there. So a part of this position is also to redistribute the workload that we have in our engineering department right now and focus that team on work that I think is a higher priority for them.
Yes, ma'am, Commissioner Martin.
A quick question. Earlier, you referred to this position as reporting to you, but what you just said now sounds like it would report to Director Corbin.
No. No, I said the position will be part of a team that would
Okay.
work together on specifically, Commissioner Ashley brought up Deering Park and how we would monitoring and overseeing that development.
I see, so the natural resource manager, would be using the resources within the city to coordinate,
Absolutely.
um,
And a
well,
great
to
example.
coordinate specifically or higher priority for DPIC?
I'm not sure I understand that.
Well, I thought you said that part of his or her duties would be to coordinate all the different departments, which I understand. But then I thought I heard you say that would be used in also overseeing DPIC.
No, I didn't say that they would oversee DPIC. I said they would be part of the team that is overseeing DPIC, which includes engineers, planners,
Okay.
and other resources.
So we are planning a team too.
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Yeah.
Kevin, I have a question.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Do we have written job descriptions yet for these new positions?
We do.
We do, okay.
Preliminary, but
Yeah,
yes, sir.
we could take a look and,
Yep.
okay.
Anyone else? I've got a few, and I appreciate your robust description of each of these and justification thereof. Starting with the conversation we had a minute ago about thinking differently and working differently. And these positions will enable your demand signal to your immediate direct reports and Ron's immediate direct reports to do work differently. They're not doing anymore. They're back thinking about the next thing and the thing after that and looking to the future. And that you have that demand signal already and have realized they've fallen short of that because they're out there handling the day-to-day is a great observation. I happen to agree with it. And that you want something different is encouraging to me. Stormwater foreman, it's the biggest challenge that the city faces. It is the livelihood, the quality of life of our residents as a coastal community. So having at least the foreman and maybe in due order, somebody that is the stormwater czar sounds righteous to me. Next point, street sweeping. Your predecessor and I debated the buy versus rent options for a long time, and talked with several other city managers that buy and some rent. It's an equipment money sink, as I understand it. The equipment is not reliable, and the harder you use it, the more it breaks. So just know we're buying into we're going down a different path. I think your result will be better. I agree with you. Right now, I think they get paid by the distance that they can travel in a day, because Kirk would have them speeding. Would fine them for speeding. Because they don't really pick up much, but they do go fast. So I think it's a good experiment. And starting out with a small one, see if we can improve the quality, and then go to the bigger one. The last one, and probably the most interesting one, is the Natural Resources Manager. I know that that will have public attention in a big way, and many will describe it and think in their own minds what that might mean because of the title that you've given it. I think the details in the devil's in the details on the position description. Certainly, as we've bantered back and forth about, okay, they'll do this and they'll do that, and I agree with you on your assessment of what Kyle spends so much of his time doing, and he does it well. And so taking him off of that and having somebody that is as skilled in that area is important. There's another flavor to this. We've heard from the public a variety of inputs that said, how come you don't have your own arborist, you don't have your own naturalist to be able to help you with the assessments that people make on their own about whether to take a tree down or what. I don't know if there's a place in the position description of any training or experience in how they handle tree management or foliage or whatever. Something that would ease the pain of those that would say, in an ordinance that we're debating now about architectural, landscape architect, you must have a landscape architect to redo your property, which I don't favor. This might be that bridge, having somebody with that skill set in there to be of assistance, not to be a ruler, but to be of a resource to come in and ask questions of. So if that's in the position description, great. If not, please consider it. Anybody else reapproaches? Thank you. Please continue.
Just waiting for the slide to come up. There we go. Next slide. Okay, now we're going to begin reviewing the specifics of each fund. We're going to start with the general fund. The general fund is the city's primary operating fund, and it's also the most flexible. It accounts for all financial resources and activities that aren't legally required to be restricted or reported in another fund. And because of its flexibility, the general fund supports a wide range of essential services that you can see here. Next slide.
Have you considered is there a conversation about transitioning any of these to a enterprise fund?
We are looking at a variety of activities such as the Brannan Center, golf course, as a business before putting them in an enterprise fund to see if they can at least break even with their basic operating revenues and operating expenses. Once we get to that point, then we could look at making them a enterprise fund where they would take on additional financial responsibility.
Appreciate that comment. That's thoughtful. Yes, ma'am.
I think you know that the golf course was once an enterprise, and a few years ago it was decided, Jason, I'm sure you remember, that the golf course would never be self-supporting, so that's when it got moved from enterprise to general, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Okay. This pie chart shows the breakdown of general fund operating revenues by type. As you can see, property taxes make up the largest share at 59%, followed by other taxes, which are like your communication services tax, sales tax, utility taxes. The remaining revenue comes from intergovernmental sources at 7%, charges for services at 5%, and a smaller portion from miscellaneous revenues and allocated overhead at 3%.
Can you give some examples of the other category?
That would be interest earnings. It could be proceeds from the sale of assets.
Pretty big number. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So this table shows a year-over-year change in total general fund revenues. While most categories saw modest shifts, there are several notable changes, and I'm going to start with, at the bottom of the slide, you can see funds carried forward from prior year. We're budgeting $23.2 million compared to $7.6 million in the current budget. So that's a $15.6 million increase. That goes back to our earlier conversation about the overall jump in the city's budget, and that's recognizing resources that have always been there, just making them transparent and in the budget.
And might insert one more time, Joe, it is so important how we tell that story. So the communication plan, I mean, we're eye deep in it, right? We're right here in it, but those that are on the outside are not. So how we tell that story is really going to be important.
Property tax
Ma'am.
revenue.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. I'm
Just,
sorry.
could you give us some examples also of the intergovernmental revenues?
Sure. So intergovernmental revenues either come from grants or they come from the state. That's going to be your sales tax, gas taxes.
Bed tax.
Yeah. And going to add any other?
I don't think we get any bed tax.
We
do
don't get bed tax. No, that goes to the county.
Yeah, well, Debbie Malis gets it, and we spend it here in town. So it goes to the Visitors Bureau, and we do get
Oh, okay.
some benefit from that, so.
I thought it was split between advertising, SEVAA, whatever, and support for the Ocean Center, or am I confusing it with a different tax?
I'm not familiar with that revenue source. I don't know if, yeah, Sam, if you want to come and explain.
Good morning. Samantha Bergeron, Economic Development Director. The way the bed tax works is that I believe it's 12.4%, and that gets collected by bed and breakfast, Airbnbs, VBROs, hotels. It's paid into the county. The county then disseminates it. A portion of it does go to support the Ocean Center, and the other portion goes to the ad authorities. Here we have 3 in this county. And, but that money has to be used for advertising outside of our county, is the way that it has to be spent. And that's per Florida statute.
Okay. Thank you. Just some other highlights. Property tax revenue is up 2.2 million. We've talked about it previously. Other taxes, which includes the state sales tax, communication services tax, utility taxes are up 1.2 million. Miscellaneous revenues, you'll see, are decreasing by 1.3 million. That's primarily because 1 million in naming rights revenue was not rebudgeted in the 2026 budget as the city continues to explore the options around generating that income. Interest income dropped by about $1 million, reflecting a more conservative earning assumption. And this aligns with the city's requirement to emphasize safety and liquidity over yield. And then finally, allocated overhead decreased by about $731,000 as discussed earlier. Together, these adjustments contribute to a total general fund revenue increase of 25%. And just to dive a little deeper into the increase in those funds carried forward, the difference year over year was about $15 million. $10 million of that is previously unbudgeted reserves that have been banked, funds that have been banked that are now being formally recognized in the budget. $1 million in debt service interest savings from an early principal repayment on the line of credit. And then $4 million is being returned to the general fund from the stormwater fund. This money had been previously advanced to the stormwater fund to support the hazardous mitigation projects that are being grant reimbursed. So this change does improve the transparency by showing all of the resources that we have available to us. Now we'll look at expenses. Public safety accounts for the largest share at 50%, reflecting the city's commitment to police, fire, and emergency services. General government functions, which include administration, finance, and other support services, make up 20%. Parks and leisure services represent 14% to support quality of life amenities for residents and visitors. And streets and infrastructure account for 6%. The remaining 10% is miscellaneous, and it covers a range of smaller but essential services. This graph illustrates how every dollar that comes into the general fund is allocated. So for every dollar that we receive, 34% goes to public safety, 34 cents, 20 cents is set aside for reserves, 12 cents is dedicated to capital improvements, 11 cents to support general government support. Parks and Leisure Services receive about 9 cents of every dollar, while streets and infrastructure receive about 4 cents. Finally, 2 cents is allocated for debt service. So this is a year-over-year comparison of the general fund budget. Expenses increased by $15.5 million or 25%. The most significant new item is the $13.6 million, which is being budgeted for the first time in reserves. Capital spending increased by $3.7 million or 70% to support infrastructure and facility improvements that we'll talk about in more detail on a subsequent slide. Public safety expenses increased $1.6 million. General government increased $1.2 million. And that's reflecting an investment in staffing and service delivery. Parks and Leisure Services saw a 9% increase, while transportation saw a 5% increase. Debt service decreased by 37%, and business and economic development dropped by 16%. Hurricane-related expenses from fiscal year 2025 were not rebudgeted in 2026, resulting in a $7 million decrease. And contingency funding was increased by up to $750,000, so a $331,000 increase.
Joe, we got to Commissioner Perrine's point. This is the growth of expenses of $15 million, and we've got a growth of the overall budget of $70 million. So we're going to have to fill the chart out a little more robustly to make the math come together. You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I think so. I don't have it in my head yet, but hopefully by the end of your presentation, I'll know the difference between the 15 up to the 70.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sir.
Just a general question. On any of these charts, that as an example, if I were doing it, I would order biggest to smallest.
Okay.
And when you look at the previous slides, the dollar cut up and the pie charts, it's intuitive. It's intuitive that you can understand it, very intuitive. But when you go to our columns, we're jumping all over the place. And I would recommend that unless these are ordered in importance that I don't know about, but I would start with the biggest and end with the smallest. It's just your brain understands it better.
Good recommendation. It is ordered by the State Chart of Accounts, which is only for us accountants, so I think that's good feedback for the public to make that
Consumption.
change.
Ms. Martin?
My understanding is that a lot of these broad changes that look like they're so big are the result of a one-time restructuring of how we do the budget.
Correct.
And so they're not the huge changes that they would appear, but they are in fact just a reflection of a change in methodology.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, so Commissioner Martin, you seem to enjoy going the opposite way that I do. So why don't you explain what the difference in that methodology is, so if I'm John Q. Public, I can get it.
Well, my understanding, just looking at this chart, is there's about, what, 15 million there, if I'm not mistaken, that weren't in the 25 budget due to the way accounting methodology was for that year. But this year, they are in the budget because we are now taking some of that unassigned money and putting it into reserves. And that's reflected across, I think, all the departments or all of the groupings.
Correct.
So it's not really a increase in money to be collected. It's just a reallocation of money that was not previously allocated.
Correct. So it's not new money, it's money that's been in the city's bank account. It's just now being reflected for full transparency. And if you look at the bottom line, total expenses are going up 15.5 million. And the last two lines on that slide are your reserves, and it almost equals that $15.5 million increase in the budget.
Commissioner Perrine.
So I just want to elaborate here that this reporting structure is different, and we had new auditors this year by request of us wanting a new set of eyes with our new leadership here that we have. We passed with flying colors, and thank you both for that. That's what we really wanted. And with the new set of eyes, did they get in the weeds with this much detail of caring that was reported or not? That was something I failed to ask him. Did he look at how they treated last year's reporting on the reserves and not being transparent and put it in the budget to this year? Do they care about budgets?
They don't typically care about budgets, although in their presentation they did talk about the healthy state of the city and the amount of reserves available.
Thank you. I didn't think they went this far, cared. And so this is where people are going to maybe question, why is your budget jumping to 200 million? And, you just passed the audit. It had nothing to do with audit. And I just wanted to clarify that for the folks, because we know that, but public didn't, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it helps a bit. I'm just, most of the folks are not going to understand adding, and these are in there. There's a reserves and capital reserves in there that were not there last year. But at some point, we're going to have to get to: is this costing us more? Are you spending more? We're going to have to answer those questions, right? And those are simple questions that technocrats will have a good time talking all the business that you talk regularly. But at some point, we're going to have to explain that it's not more expensive, and we didn't spend more of your money. We found money that wasn't being accounted for before, and other buckets, and explain this methodology a little bit more simply than just using the word methodology to explain methodology.
Good point.
Thank you.
Well said.
So now we're going to look at each of the departments in the general fund. We'll just do a high-level review. This is the City Commission. The total budget is actually decreasing by 6%. That's primarily the result of funds that have been allocated for investigative services not being needed in fiscal year 2026. The city manager's budget is increasing by $470,000. It's driven by both staffing growth and targeted operational investments. This includes the addition of the new natural resource manager we talked about earlier, the transfer of the police PIO role from the police department to the city manager's department, wage adjustment to account for the pay plan implementation, and a negotiated salary increase for the city manager. On the operating side, there's $10,000 that's been added for citywide appraisals. City clerk budget is increasing just slightly by 1%. Go to the next slide. Finance department budget is increasing by $183,000 or 14%. Personnel costs are up 18%, primarily due to a job classification change when we converted the risk management position for part-time to full-time, and then the wage adjustment for the pay plan study implementation.
Can you pause there for just a second, please? This, did you just say, or I might have misheard, that all the personnel expenses in the city, you rolled them up under the personnel department? Here?
No,
No.
each department has personnel within their budget. You're going to
Okay.
see a common theme of an increase in personnel, which is that placeholder for implementation of the pay plan study
Got it.
or the union contracts.
So finance is up 18% in personnel.
Yeah, about 10% of that is related as a placeholder for the pay plan study increase. The other 8% is for transitioning the risk management position from part-time to full-time.
Got it. And so that's, study is just your segment of the study. It'll affect
Correct.
every department.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll see every department having a 10-ish% increase.
Got it.
How
Commissioner
much
Brink.
was that pay plan study for, that you have in that budget, dollar amount?
For the actual study, I
Yeah.
believe it was around 30 or 38,000?
Okay,
Yes.
30, thank you, I
35,000.
couldn't remember.
The information technology budget reflects a 14% increase. I won't talk about personnel unless it's something above and beyond the pay plan study placeholder. But on the operating side, there's a $95,000 increase in software-related contractual services and a $40,000 increase in hardware, software, and maintenance costs. A lot of IT services are subscription-based, and it's a reoccurring year-over-year expense.
Did each department get to pick what they thought their estimated impact of the study is, or did you say, we think it'll be this across the board?
We worked with Human Resources to come up with an amount, and
I'll ask a better question. Was it subjective that each department could say, we think it'll hit us this much versus, in other words, should the study impact each department to the same percent, or should it affect them differently?
for budgeting purposes, we used a standard
Just one
amount
number.
across the board. We do expect some departments may see more increase than others.
Got it. So I see an 8% here and an 18% for finance.
Well, the 18 for finance, that part of that is the risk manager going from part-time to full-time.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
And some of the personnel changes may hover around 10%, because there might have been other
But that's the thumbnail
decreases.
is about 10%. Okay. Thank you.
Human resources budget is actually experiencing an 8% decrease. That is primarily due to a $140,000 reduction in labor attorney costs, and it's being partially offset by a $27,000 increase for physicals and testing. The city attorney's budget is reflecting a 14% overall increase. Personnel costs are being driven by the wage study as well as a renegotiated contract with the city attorney. Operating expenses were a modest increase. The planning and engineering department reflects a 6% increase or $101,000. Key changes include $23,000 overall increase in professional services, $173,000 allocated for updating the city's comprehensive plan, and a reduction in the traffic study analysis budget from $150,000 to $100,000. Public Works administration budget is reflecting a 25% overall increase. That is being driven by the addition of the GIS analyst position and the wage study. Operating expenses remained relatively flat. Facility management, again, same theme. This is reflecting the increase related to adding the foreman wage adjustment. The The Streets Division is looking at a $149,000 increase, again, primarily related to the addition of a foreman. On the operating side, there are some expenses related to fleet maintenance billings, operating supplies, fuel, and they're eliminating $10,000 for a grader rental. Police Department budget overall is increasing by $311,000 or 2%. Operating expenses are up slightly with key one-time additions, including $30,000 for marine derelict vessel removal, $10,000 for landscaping, and $48,000 for interior painting of the police building. Other increases include $16,000 for spring break related supplies and emergencies and $12,000 for badges and wallets per the union agreement. The police department we've also budgeted for the first time the attrition. I talked about it earlier, but that's based on historical vacancies. Over the year, we're anticipating some savings for that, so we're budgeting that for the first time. The fire department budget is projected to go up $336,000 or 3%. Operating adjustments include $35,000 for a professional evaluation of the fire ground physical ability test, a $50,000 increase in fleet maintenance billing, and reductions of $28,000 in vehicle leases and uniforms. Additionally, rescue supply costs are up about $18,000 due to rising prices. Fire transport budget is flat with a 1% reduction. The emergency operations budget is flat year over year. This is a new department that we're budgeting, so $130,000 for software related to parking violation collections had been in the police department, and we have separated it for transparency purposes. So it's not a new expense, it's just moving to a different, its own department. The Business and Economic Development budget reflects a 16% overall decrease. Personnel costs are down due to the transfer of the Community Resource Coordinator position to Leisure Services. Operating changes include a $10,000 grant for program mailers, $18,000 to update the CRA and Economic Development strategic plans, and a $9,000 reduction in other funding. The Economic Development Plan budget is also being reduced by $40,000, and the move to City Hall results in $24,000 savings across utilities, repairs, and leases, where Economic Development was housed in the Connor Library before. Leisure Services has a 20% increase, or $397,000. Personnel costs are up, and that's due to the pay plan study, as well as a mid-year adjustment that occurred in this fiscal year, where the Leisure Services Director reorganized the part-time employees. You may recall that coming to commission a few months ago, where they moved part-time people between golf, the sports complex, and Leisure Services to better manage the operations. Operating expenses are increasing 15%, primarily driven by janitorial contract increases, $28,000 for Council on Aging services, $50,000 for waived fees for nonprofit use at the Brannan Center, and additional increases include $28,000 for expanded special events and $9,000 for skate park merchandise. The Parks budget has a 7% overall increase. Again, personnel services are being driven by the addition of a Parks foreman and the pay plan study implementation. Operating costs are remaining flat. The sports complex budget reflects a 20% overall increase. Personnel costs are up 41%. It's similar to leisure services. That's due to the pay plan study and then the reallocation of the part-time staff between all of the leisure services departments. Operating expenses are projected to go up 10%, $10,000 increase for Winter Wonderland and a naming rights consultant, $19,000 increase for phone and internet services, and a $40,000 increase in repair and maintenance. So other is the catch-all. It includes transfers out, non-departmental expenses, hurricane, contingency, capital, and required reserves. All of those categories are going up $12.6 million. As we've said earlier, that is primarily driven by those reserves being budgeted for the first time. So general fund capital.
Could we go back before you've gone to each of the departments? That's really helpful. Any questions or comments on any of the departmental stuff? Can you refresh my memory then on the leisure services personnel costs seem to be the biggest increases. Remind me, the part-time to full-time, what do we do and how do we get there?
Rob.
Yeah, Director Salazar can
Thank you,
address
sir.
that.
So what we did this current fiscal year is we reallocated the funding from our part-time golf course staff to our general fund, leisure services and sports complex part-time staff. We had a staffing budget that was over budgeted in golf, and we reallocated that towards these budgets to better show what the actuals are. So in the golf course budget, you should see a decrease in the balance.
Thanks, that helps. Appreciate that, thank you. Anybody else?
For leisure services and golf and building or sports complex and all of that, we're going to be able to go through line item for the book, correct? Are we?
If you
Because
want
I
to.
have a ton of questions for you with
Okay.
that. So do we do it now, or are we going to go line item by page of the budget book?
Well, if you've got questions that we can answer today, we're happy to do that. If
Yeah,
you've
I
got,
mean, for today, for sure. But okay, so for transparency, we love how you're doing this and you're bringing this to us versus us making a priority decision that we don't know your job or your weeds. But I did go through this book line item by line item, and so did the rest of us probably. So I like this overview, but we do a much deeper dive. And I have a lot of, by page, several pages of questions, and a lot of it is leisure services. So I just want to know at what point are we going to take a break, come back, go through the book, or kind of give me your thought process on this?
well, we're going to get through this. We've probably got at least another hour to get through this presentation. So we're happy to answer questions in this form. If you've got very detailed stuff, it might be easier for us to get one-on-one with you and
I don't want to do
specifically-
that.
Okay,
I've got to have this public.
okay.
So, I mean,
So the protocol then is, it's really over to you and Joe. Do you want us to go department by department to get to that level of detail, or do you want to finish this and then we'll go back? Totally your call. Either way is fine.
Let us get through this, and if
Okay. So we've got another hour or so, you figure, for this, and we've been at it for 2 hours. Is there anybody up for a 10-minute break? I would love a break. I see some nods. So let's do a break and we'll reconvene at 11:10. All right, reconvene 11:10. Good break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
it's turned over the other way. So that's gonna be weird. I didn't join.
So as we proceed, Joe, just for everybody's edification, in the 2 hours that we've been going through this technique of budget review, we've had no less than 5 records requests for this presentation. So the public is out there, they're watching, and they want to know the detail.
And the presentation will be posted. Yes, sir. The city clerk will make sure of that, I'm sure.
Okay. So just to wrap up the general fund, we'll talk about general fund capital. General fund capital projects for 2026 total just over $9 million. By function, the largest investment, $6.17 million, is in general government related projects, followed by 1.47 in leisure and parks projects, and 1.07 million in public safety projects. By project type, key allocations include 2.13 million for property and building maintenance, 1.9 million for replacement of vehicles and heavy equipment, and 1.7 million for new equipment. Other notable items include 700,000 for hardened barricades. That would be a grant match if we were successful in securing a grant. 520,000 for building improvements, and 275,000 for golf course path repairs. Now we're going to talk about the 2 general fund subfunds. That's going to be Brannan Center and the golf course. These are the funds that you're going to see for the remainder of the day are presented more in a profit and loss format, where we look at operating revenues compared to operating expenses to see how they're performing, and then we look at the non-reoccurring type items. So for the Brannan Center, this fund accounts for revenue and expenses associated with the operation of the Brannan Center. It maintains 4 full-time staff. Operating revenues are projected to increase by 46%, rising from $345,000 to $520,000. Operating expenses are also increasing by 14% due to inflation, service demands, and also the addition of a alcoholic beverage services. As a result, the operating loss improves from $297,000 in the current fiscal year to $228,000 in next year's budget. On the non-reoccurring side, the general fund transfer is being reduced by 26% from $309,000 to $228,000. Overall, the Brannan Center is trending toward a smaller deficit and reduced reliance on the general fund support. Well, on this side, you can see the history of the general fund support of the Brannan Center, and as I just mentioned, we're trending in a positive direction. The golf course is projected to operate at $168,000 loss. This is an improvement over the current year, which was projected to be a $219,000 deficit. Revenues are down 11%, but that's strictly reflective of more realistic alignment with historical actuals, while expenses are remaining flat. The general fund transfer is reduced by nearly half. The budget does include funding to study operations and develop a strategic plan to guide the long-term plan for the golf course, and that will help inform future budgets. This slide shows the historical general fund support of the golf course. Again, you can see the trend is in a positive direction.
Well, the last column, I would not call that a trend.
Golf course capital, there is a significant investment in capital in 2026 for the golf course. It's being funded partially from recreation impact fees and $750,000 from the general fund. The largest items are the golf course path repairs I just mentioned, the purchase of some 2 mowers, or multiple more mowers and equipment. Okay, now we're going to talk about the other operating funds. The stormwater fund accounts for stormwater fees, which are restricted for expenses related to stormwater operations, maintenance, and capital improvements. If you look at the operating income loss, the fund is projected to have a $1.4 million profit in 2026. This is under the assumption that there would be a stormwater rate increase, which we'll talk about on the next slide. After allocated overhead, there would be approximately $1 million. Capital expenses, $4.4 million will be spent on capital, which we'll talk on the next slide as well. There's about $500,000 spent on debt service expense for some loans that have been taken out in the past to do capital projects. So at the end of the day, at the end of the 2026 budget, the fund would still have $729,000. $616,000 is required reserves of 20%, with $112,000 being set aside for future operations or capital needs. Now we'll talk about the rate increase. So the current rate per ERU for stormwater is $104,000. By ordinance, it can increase up by CPI. We are recommending an increase of 20% instead of CPI this year, and that would bring the ERU rate from $104 to $125. And the reason for this is the backlog of stormwater capital projects that are needed in the next several years. So by increasing the rate to $125, the stormwater fund would generate about $600,000 in additional revenue.
So is that sufficient in your mind, Mr. Manager, to make the state help us? Their threshold is they want to see half in from us, and then they'll go in. We're taking a bigger bite of the apple already. Are we taking a big enough bite?
Well, I mean, that's our desire, is to generate enough revenue that we can do projects either by pay-as-you-go or borrow funds for larger projects and do the debt service and match any grants that may become available to us. So, that's what our desire is to do. I believe this will get us there. Ultimately, that's to be determined going forward, just depending on the results of the stormwater studies that we're doing today. We're wrapping up the phase 1. We'll be moving into phase 2 of the study, and as those studies are finalized, we'll have a better idea of the scale and scope and magnitude of what it is that we are going to do. Whatever it is, it will be more than we are doing. I do know that, and the more funds that we can start to get will help us going forward.
So scoping expectations, we won't know that information until 26 from the phase 2, right? So we're taking our best guess.
Yes. Good.
Anybody else? Commissioner Perrine? No? Good. Commissioner Martin?
My only question was, we know we have massive stormwater projects ahead of us. Is the 20% a reason? I understand it's a big jump, but I'm also looking at accruing the funds to build up to being able to, without any special assessments, without any craziness, be able to pay for the projects that we see coming. Because I don't think we've ever seen a project that's under, I don't know what,
5 million.
under 5 million? Yeah. So I'm looking at this saying, oh,
Yeah, and again, this is just one piece of the puzzle for the stormwater project funding. You know, I think we probably all agree that, you know, this is not just a New Smyrna issue. This is a regional issue, and it's going to take regional cooperation and state and federal funding to help get us there. So, you know, there's no expectation whatsoever that these funds will do everything that we need done, but they will play a critical part of that. So it's just impossible to know today exactly, you know, definitively exactly what resources we will need until all those projects are developed and we start getting estimates.
so if we
of their
put in the
cost.
20% now, by this time next year, we'll be able to say, okay, we need to do X with our stormwater rates.
Yeah, I think we'll be in a better position to do that next year.
Okay.
And again, these fees would go into account for the next tax year, so we would start collecting that next year.
So, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Proceed.
This slide summarizes the stormwater capital, approximately $14.4 million. $10 million is anticipated to come from grants, with $4.4 million coming from the actual stormwater revenues. The $6 million grant for Corbin Park has been secured. The $4 million grant for Historic West Side is in progress. As you know, there was a $1 million state appropriation, and we are continuing to explore other grant opportunities. Airport operations are budgeted to have a $980,000 operating income next year. After allocated overhead, that provides a surplus of about $757,000. If you look halfway down the page, the non-reoccurring items, $763,000 as the most significant, and that's for capital. That leverages significant amounts of federal and state grants, which you'll see on the next page. At the end of the fiscal year, we're targeting an ending fund balance of $1.3 million, 15% of which is restricted fund balance, with the remaining $794,000 available for future operations or capital needs.
So Joe, probably an Arvin question, and not really on airport operations, but for a while we were talking about all the other rents we pay to the feds for the various activities we have, the sports complex, the police department, fire department, whatever. Have FAA changed their stance, or would we ever be able to purchase any of that so we can get out of the renting mode and into the owning mode?
Arvin can answer that for us.
Hello, good morning. Yes, so we have made an official request to the Orlando Airport District Office with the FAA for several properties. We're exploring that option to see if we can't purchase some of that, or the general fund could purchase those properties outright. That's still up in the air. They're collecting some information. We're collecting some information from them, or for them, for that project.
Is that unprecedented, Arvin? I know it may be for us, but other airport folks that you're talking to,
It has been done. I mean, the real thing, the main thing that they're looking at is to determine a lot of the airport property was deeded to the city, and it's under federal obligations, and this goes back to like the 40s. Some of the property was unobligated and released from federal obligations in the 50s. And then for reasons we don't know, we haven't been able to determine, in 1977, it was reobligated. So there's two projects going on right now simultaneously. We have a request into the ADO to make this determination. We also are conducting a survey of the whole airport. We've just in this week been able to uncover some information that's going to help them make that determination. We're trying to determine some of the information about the airport was not documented in the 70s, and so that's what's kind of held this up. I hope to have an answer for the city manager here in the next few months as to how we can move that forward.
any other questions? Yes, sir.
Arvin, is the information that you're going to provide them, do you feel that's going to help us in our position, or?
Well, at the end of the day, this is the criteria that they're looking for. And the criteria they're looking for is, how does this benefit the airport? So does the sale of the property help the airport? So that's the determining factor. For example, the sports complex. If the sale of the sports complex for, instead of leasing it monthly, if that benefits the airport in some way, the concern from their standpoint is going to be, is this land that could benefit the airport sometime in the future? Is this land that could, help economic growth at the airport in the future?
Is it your job then to make that case why it would benefit, or are you just, what role do you play, and what role could we play and to help this along? And is it they're making the determination whether it helps?
They will. Well, they'll make the final
I
determination.
got that part, but
right.
who's the?
So my role is to kind of represent you and to look out for the interests of the airport. So I kind of have to balance that role. Ultimately, I answer to the city. I'm a servant of the city. So at the same time, as a professional in this role, you also want to have a good relationship, and you want to look out for the airport. So that determination hasn't been made. We're trying to put all the fiscal analysis together along with the land history, so that they'll have the best information they can to make the determination. But I think it's going to be piece by piece. There may be some land, as far as, like, say, to the south of the airport, which is not connected to any runways, doesn't have any ability to be used by the airport in the future. For example, the borrow pit or the skate park or some of that land. I think the case is a little easier to make there, that it may not have an impact or may not be needed by the airport. The sports complex is a little tougher because that's land that is being used right now, but it also could be, at some point connected to the airport. We recently had an organization reach out, a big organization looking for land adjacent to the airport, and they need 20 acres of property. We don't have that land right now, but nevertheless, there is airport land there, but it's just being used for another purpose. So all those things have to be considered.
So Arvin, you said that we somehow reallocated the land back under federal obligation in the 1970s. The city had a pretty aggressive campaign in the 80s and 90s selling airport land. How did we get away with that then? Tell me what's changed so much between then and now?
Right. So in the 60s and 70s especially, there was a lot of land that was sold off, and I don't have the answer as to how they got away with it. I do know that they are paying more attention now, it seems to be. And that the city, ultimately, as the sponsor, you do own that land. And so it's not that you can't sell it. You can. There might be consequences. They might come and say, okay, you you didn't have permission to do that, and they might force the city to pay the airport fund back for that land. The FAA, in my experience, it carries a big stick, but they don't like to use it. So they prefer to work with the sponsor, the city, to work these things out. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. if
So I
that
get
helps.
that. Emergency services will benefit the airport in a way. I see how the sports complex won't, but, necessarily, but, is the FAA going to then challenge, so they're okay with renting, but not selling?
So they have to approve, they consider renting or selling a disposal of land. So whether you're leasing it or you're buying it outright, obviously a purchase is permanent, more permanent. But if if we're leasing it, the sports complex, that lease had to be approved. The police and fire, that lease had to be approved. They still consider it disposal, and those leases had to be, approved by saying, okay, we don't need this right now for airport use, for airport
Okay, so they've
operations.
signed off and been okay with the leasing, with the idea that long-term, the property could always revert back to the
Right.
airport.
Right.
Do you need help in developing a favorable opinion to the FAA on having the city purchase its properties?
No, I think at the end of the day, we're going to be, my intent has been to show the cost benefit analysis of how it does benefit the airport. The airport has needs in the short term. Some of that land, for example, there's 3 runways that the airport currently has. 2 of them are funded by the FAA and 1 is not. The one that is not funded by the FAA, just to completely rehab that runway, is about $13 million. And you just saw our budget, so obviously we don't have that kind of money in our reserves. And as you know, the airport's not part of the general fund, so we're not asking for money from the city for that. But, a large influx of cash could help us do that. That 3rd runway is a benefit to both the community and to the airport. It's a benefit to the community because it allows us one more direction of flight activity to spread the noise out.
So, yeah, now I get
guess
that.
so. That's one of the.
Is the FAA's goal to expand the airport? Or, because right now we have an airport that's functioning, we have a lot of property around it that over the last 40 years has been developed in other ways. Is the FAA looking for future expansion? Is that one of their goals?
No, they just want to make sure, not necessarily, but they want to make sure that the airport remains viable into the future. So whatever that is, so however you can protect it and make sure that it's, self-sustaining in the future so that it doesn't at some point, there are airports in the area that are not self-sustaining, that the taxpayers are on the hook for that airport. So right now you have a healthy airport, but that doesn't mean we don't need to be looking for new ways to make money. And so you don't necessarily want to grow it, but just like New Smyrna Beach is growing, and you're looking for ways to make sure that's sustainable, we want the same thing for the airport. We can't close it, so we got to make the best of what we have.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else? As an aside, Arvin, can you tell me what the setbacks and height restrictions are from taxiways and runways?
Oh, well, it varies depending on where you are. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sloped depending on the approach surfaces and what runways are in use, so it varies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Arvin.
Okay, just to wrap up the airport, I mentioned that about $763,000 of airport revenues is being used to leverage grants. The capital program for 2026 is about $6.2 million. Some of the significant projects, runway 725 and 29 PAPI replacement and vault improvements is $1.8 million. A new admin building for $2.5 million. Airport master plan update for $650,000. T-hangar rehabilitation for $560,000, and then airport wildlife fencing for $660,000. All of those capital items are funded 88% by grants.
And what portion of that shows in our budget, Joe? The whole thing?
Yes. So when you look at we created in the 26 budget a new airport capital fund.
Not previously been in budgets, so this is part of the difference between what we used to do and what we do now.
This isn't necessarily contributing to the difference. In the past, airport operations and airport capital were budgeted in one fund.
Okay.
So it was very difficult to tell how the day-to-day operations were doing. So we've created two funds. So you would see in the capital fund, the full $6.2 million being budgeted as a capital expense. And then on the revenue side, you'd see $5.5 million in grants coming into the city and $763,000 being transferred from the operating fund.
Got it. Similar to previous years?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Parking operations, operating revenues are budgeted to exceed income by about $157,000 after allocated overhead. The reoccurring surplus is approximately $84,000. This fund does have a significant fund balance that has been accumulating year over year. At the end of the year, they are projected to have about almost $4.1 million in funds saved up. 15% is a required reserve, that's $206,000, with $3.8 million being available for future operations or capital needs.
Wow. Yes, ma'am?
Well, just testing my memory. This fund can only be used for road expansion.
This fund can only be used for parking operations and parking improvements.
Okay, thank you.
It is
Wrong fund.
restricted.
So, to her point, what do you do with that $4 million? And I'm assuming that'll grow every year. This is mostly parking fines?
This is parking.
Parking revenue,
fees.
parking fees.
Yeah, the
Fines are
fines-
something different.
Fines go into the general fund, where the fees go
So
into
you're
this.
generating this money from the revenues, and you're gonna do, Steve may say, we're gonna do paid parking in other places or not. What do you do? How do you treat this, sir?
So your question is, how are we going to spend this money? So the big picture answer to that is we have a parking study and parking plan. That's got a number of operational parking suggestions. It's got a lot of capital parking projects. So we will be referring to the parking study and looking at the possibilities of different projects. But at least in the short term, we're going to be looking at expanding some of our surface parking availability, looking at possibilities of leases so that we can utilize existing parking resources, things of that nature.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Perrine?
Yeah, overall, why are we down this year from last year, almost $200,000 in parking revenue?
We're comparing budget to budget. So when we developed the 26 budget, we looked at actuals. So the 26 budget is more aligned with what the actual revenues have been.
Do we know why we projected $200,000 more than we should have?
I don't think Joe knows the answer to that, no. I think it's a projection, and at whatever point in time that projection was made, probably 2 years ago, that's what they projected the revenue, but it wasn't there. So, that's part of what I've asked Joe to do is, we need to project based on what we do know. And so, this is historic revenue that has been collected And based on that, excuse me, this is the projection we're making.
Would that be based on tourism being down?
I can't answer that.
So how have we done over time? That would be, Shaliza, you've been on this for a long time. So have we missed the mark regularly, or are we right on? And something, what's the trend? In other words, and maybe not instant response here, but be good to know that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of this is a result of the zero-based budget process. And I believe in the past, we used an actual and then just incremented it by a certain percentage rather than looking at historical numbers. Yeah. So this one is based on actual data, whereas the last one was based on a formula. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Proceed. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure they base past budgets, so not looking at the actuals. We did look at the actuals.
Yeah, again, I think it's just a combination of things. We have looked at all of these revenues, expenses with fresh eyes this year, and want to project the revenues where we think they are. And you're going to see more of that as we go through these funds. So, I can't off the top of my head, I can't answer why something was done last year or the year before. We can look back at the historic trends of what was budgeted and the actuals and show you that.
One of the things I remember too, coming off of COVID, our tourism was down significantly. So I could see where parking income revenues based on projections of tourism, basically. And then we go from that and we tweak our parking fees to some extent based on plates and who pays and who doesn't. And so I think when I'm analyzing this stuff, I go pretty deep with my thoughts, and sometimes they get me in trouble. But I'm always thinking, hey, where was our economy the last, I've been up here 2.5 years, going on 3. Where has our economy been with our parking revenue? Because you can see parking revenue is pretty significant. And when we were looking at our little pie chart, we were looking at property taxes. This isn't something to sneeze at. We were able to fund a lot of things through this parking revenue. And we are on this mission to make sure our parking people, our new person goes in the right direction. So when we're budgeting and looking at this stuff, we just had the Sapphire people come in. I don't know how much that revenue would be if we were even supposed to turn that into parking or not. I know for the last 20 years I've been coming here that people have been parking there for free. So now all of a sudden we're going to collect money. They come up and say, why are you doing that? To my knowledge, they've always been parking there. But so parking is huge. This is a nice amount of revenue. And it's been a big benefit. I've seen us go in this city from not charging for parking at all to look what all the projects we've gotten done by the boat ramp. And, so it is a benefit. We're charging tourists parking, which goes back into helping us fund things. And drilling that down to our past meeting 2 nights ago with, how we do this, we're going to look to our new parking person. So when I saw that revenue that dropped, I just questioned why, Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Very understandable. And we'll take a deeper dive at the trends there.
Yeah.
Commissioner McGurk.
So I've mentioned this previously, and I just want to stress it again. The parking fund was, the intent was originally to be set up to generate a pool of money to then acquire more parking. And for one reason or another, it has gone to expenses for other things. This is not on your watch. I think this has just happened over the last 10 years. I know the county gave us 27th Avenue lot, for example, to maintain it. We started using the money for that. I don't like that. I don't think we should have done that. The direction was clear. We need to digest the lots in our normal operating budget. The parking fund was there to generate a lot of money because acquiring parking is very expensive. And had we been able to build up this parking fund like we intended to, we would be sitting on a big chunk of money right now with a lot of options, but we're not. The parking fund has been wildly successful beyond even the highest projections from when we first started it. So I would like to see us find a way to start accruing and maximizing those parking fund revenues to accrue in an account to be able to use for parking in the future as that problem gets worse and worse. We have our parking expert on board now, and all we need to do is two things: make a decision and have money to fund that decision. And that was supposed to be where the money comes from. Thank you. That's it.
Commissioner Ashley, do you have one? Good. Okay. Just a refresh. For the public consumption, the expense that he's talking about for maintaining is the city's rightful expense, and currently residents and businesses pay for everybody to park through their taxes. So somebody's paying for it today. You are paying for it. You may not even use it. You may not even know you're paying for it, but you're paying for it for your taxes. Our initiative, like many other cities, is to collect a fee from those that would visit from out of town as part of their expense of their vacation to come here to New Smyrna. Not any sense of greed or city trying to do anything tricky. This was just a transfer, an existing obligation that is on the taxpayers to the users who are coming to our town. And so that's plain and simple. And the big money is meant to be able to acquire more of that. And as property values go up, $4 million won't buy us much. We're going to need to get a bunch of money to buy any more parking around town to meet the needs that, Steve will determine. So anyway, just wanted to do that as a record set. Not that the city is in the parking business or anything. We're just trying to transfer an obligation that is on the backs of all the residents today to those that would use it, which are predominantly non-residents. Anybody else? Okay, thanks, Joe.
Okay, just waiting for the presentation. There we go. Okay, the solid waste fund. Operating revenues are budgeted to exceed operating expenses by $675,000. Allocated overhead did go up significantly this year next year based on the change in methodology. So you can see going from $81,000 in this fiscal year to $716,000 next fiscal year. Capital expenses, there's $300,000 budgeted for the street sweeper to do a pilot program on doing that in-house. At the end of fiscal year 2026, the fund is projected to have a $2.3 million fund balance. 20% or $2 million of that is reserved. It's 20% reserved per commission policy. And the remaining for future capital or operational needs is $264,000. Towards the end of the presentation, we will talk about future budgeting considerations, and the city manager will be talking about the solid waste contract renewal at that point.
Commissioner Martin.
So do I understand correctly, this is not the point at which we discuss recycling?
We can if you would like to, but we do have a section toward the end where we've got some future issues and concerns to discuss, and that is
Thank
part
you.
of it.
And this feels like there's a street sweeper here and is that the same street sweeper we were talking about earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
There's
so-
only one street
So
sweeper.
we only have one?
Yes, we're going to do a pilot program to see how successful
Okay.
that is.
So that street sweeper will actually come out of the solid waste fund?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk later about the recycling, the theater of recycling.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
This is just to show what the budget is based on as far as the rate increases. So the customer rate increase is projected to go up 4.7% or $1.22 per month. That's per city ordinance. The hauler contract is projected to go up 73 cents per month or 4%. And then tipping fees, which are paid separately from the hauler fees, are projected to go up about 50,000. These costs are anticipated to be quite different once we get into the 27 and future budget years based on anticipated changes. The Marina Fund, this is projected to have operating revenues exceeding operating expenses by 141,000. Allocated overhead is about 23,000. That's a reduction of 75,000 from the current fiscal year. So they will have a surplus, reoccurring surplus of about 118,000. This is based on a rate increase for docking fees, which we'll talk about on the next slide. Based on this budget, they would end fiscal year 2026 with about 145,000 in fund balance. This fund has a 15% required reserve, so 50,000 would be reserved, 94,000 would be available for future operations and capital. And on the next slide, we'll talk about the rates. So as I mentioned, the budget is based on a rate increase. You can see the current rates for New Smyrna resident and non-resident in the first column. We're projecting to go from $12.36 to $17 for a fixed dock for a resident, $13.39 to $20 per foot for a floating dock for a New Smyrna Beach resident. And then for non-residents, the increase would be from $13.39 to $20 and $14.42 to $22. So the increases range from 38% up to 53%.
Commissioner Perrine.
So what is our wait list right now with this, with jumping those fees? Do we still have a significant wait list?
Yes.
Even with our last increase? And did we lose a lot of people off of that wait list when we did that last increase? Or we still have a significant amount? Because I know the public's going to say, how can you jump it from that to that? And we can say, well, we still have a wait list that is huge.
So we still have a 25-person wait list, and I've tasked our marina manager with maintaining 100% occupancy at all times throughout our annual slips. So right now we have 43 slips in the marina. About 35 of those are for annuals. We use 8 as transient traffic. Depending on the season, the transient traffic is anywhere between 100% to about 50% full. Right now, out of our 43 slips, we have 13 residents from NSB in the marina who hold a slip. So our resident to slip ratio is, about 25%-ish, roughly. So we've tried to tailor our plan to ensure that we are operating in the black at the marina moving forward annually. So that's what the proposal for the rate increase will reflect.
And how have you guys been with getting all that maintenance done with those expenses? Because I know you were internally or in-house doing a lot of that, and then you shifted it to outside, maybe, on the welding and
Sure. So
How-
we
how are you-
completed our large-scale dock repairs that we outsourced through In-Depth Marine. That was about $450,000 that was completed this fiscal year. So those repairs are finished. We're doing some other repairs currently, including repairing the pump out that I know has been an ongoing issue. That's a $10,000 expense that I have a PO out for currently. And we also completed a AC project for the restrooms that was just done this week. So that was $12,000.
those expenses that you said, the 450,000 that you and I looked at when you had the labor doing it and then you shifted it, is that in this budget?
No, that's done. That's in fiscal '25 complete.
Okay, so
There
I mean,
will be-
it was
that's-
showing in our expenses, so.
Yes.
Can you flip that back up?
So that'll be done. That won't be reoccurring for '26 and moving forward.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good job on that. Okay, so one more slide back. Those, we
You're
budgeted
probably
for that,
looking at-
and is that the reason why?
That's the 308 that you're seeing, the revised. That's the capital expense for the dock repairs. The 450 is most likely either a total of the last 2 years combined. I think Joe's
Yes.
nodding her head, so that's what it was.
Yeah.
So,
And if you look at the fund balance for October 1st, which is about 3/4 of the way down, in the 2026 column, you can see they're projected to start the year in 2026 with only 24,000 in fund balance because of that large capital project.
That looks good, thank you.
Anybody else?
Just a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can the residents, or can anybody live at the marina indefinitely?
So right now, our current policy is we do not have liveaboards at the marina, zero. Something I have been talking about with the marina manager and our city attorney's office is bringing back liveaboards in a capacity that's better structured than we had previously as an opportunity to generate additional revenue. We moved away from the liveaboard policy because we had people who were staying in the marina year-round, and we were not able to effectively monitor and police that. So over the last 2 years, roughly, we haven't had that, but that's something I'm looking at reviewing further and building a system that will allow us to capitalize off that rather than just eliminating it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
To follow up with Vice Mayor Martin, those liveaboards, some of those issues too you had of some of those boats were in really bad, yeah. How does that, if you would
Yeah.
do that?
Part of our marina lease is, one of the requirements is all of our vessels in the marina have to be in working order. So we don't have any vessels that are in the marina that are, can't be moved.
But was that always in there, or did you enforce that and change that?
I think we had some vessels that may have been able to be moved, but they weren't in great condition. But currently, we're in a better state than we
Better
were
shape.
previously.
Good deal, thank you.
So Rob, I like the increase because we're capitalists at heart. For the non-residents, I see that it's about a $2 bump compared to if you're a resident for the annual. Just refresh, that you're going to have a surplus is great. How are we doing competitively with the other places? You've got this geographically placed asset that's closest marina to the inlet of any of the others. So, long story short, if they're not, if you're only serving 13 residents with just a little, just 13 spots, most of this is transient. There's a cost to coming to beautiful New Smyrna. I don't know if you've got rules, there's a state rule that says, okay, you can only go up a certain amount, or what the lawyers will do to tell you what you've got to contain it, but I would encourage you to keep the capitalist approach to supply and demand.
So I want to add to that. We've kind of bounced around on this quite a bit. Owning a boat in marina, it's a luxury, it's very expensive. I have no problem with the increases, and we need to make sure we're maximizing what we have. As the mayor says, you know, everybody wants to be here. It is what it is. An additional thing I would like us to consider on this is we have a waiting list. We have a waiting list with people who are not New Smyrna Beach residents on it, ahead of people who are residents. I don't like that. This is a New Smyrna Beach Marina. What I would like to do is prioritize residents before non-residents. And then if we, for some reason, don't have enough residents to fill slots, then a non-resident waiting list can then start being applied to it. I've never, excuse me, I've never understood exactly why someone in Orlando gets to be ahead of a resident who lives here, who, you know, pays taxes in the city and so on and so forth. So, you know, that may not be it's going to be very unpopular with the people who are not residents. But, you know, I like to take care of our residents first.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I didn't think you got an answer to your question about where we stood in terms of other marinas with similar characteristics.
Yeah, we are currently on the lower to middle tier of rates for similar marinas with the $12 to $14 rates. Our neighbor with at Riverdeck Marina next door with the dry slips, he's charging about $17 to $19 a foot for his dry dockage. So we're obviously wet in having our slips, which is at a premium, and we can be just as competitive with these rates, I believe, and these will be right fair market value.
That's what I was going to ask. So these rates do bring us into a competitive position. And also, as we know, if you have a big waiting list, it means you're charging too little, right?
Sure. And
so
just to add on, I know one of the sentiments from the commission has been New Smyrna Beach is a premium town, a premium product you're delivering, and I think the marina is a prime premium location, and if you want to be in that marina, then there's a price to pay for that spot, and I think we can still capitalize on our location with these rates.
Yes, ma'am.
The other thing to consider, yes, I agree with Commissioner McGurk on for the residents, but the transient slips bring in revenue to our restaurants and our Canal Street and our Flagler Avenue because the people come and they shop and they spend money. Our residents really don't. So I like how you've approached this with being competitive. I would say that my only question, I thought when we started looking this a couple of years ago, we had about 100 or 200 on that wait list. Was that just from updating it, contacting them and seeing if they were still interested or if they're,
So
can you elaborate?
Previously, we had about 300 people on the waiting list, and we reduced, a 300-person waiting list for a 43-slip marina is not, realistic to ever get through. So we pruned it down. What we've done currently, right, we have 35 annual slips from our, out of our 43. So about, 75% of our marina is for annuals. The other 8 are transient slips, which drive traffic, daily traffic, which come to Canal Street and Flagler and whatnot. Those transient slips, because of the turnover, can generate more revenue than an annual slip will over the time. Last fiscal year, we amended our transient slip rates to better reflect a structure that would be conducive to generate additional revenue, and that's been reflected through this year's revenue production. As you recall, we were closed for a portion of the year because of the construction project, so we missed a few months of revenue coming in, but our total revenue for the year will be on par with what it's been historically, even with those closures, because of the rate adjustment. Furthering our adjustment this year with the change in the annuals, so we changed transients last year, this year we're going to propose to change annuals, we'll be able to start to really maximize our revenue annually. I hope I explained that where it made sense.
Yes, and with the reserves that we have for you, is that enough with the high risk of hurricane damage with these slips?
So that's another, from my perspective, another reason to pursue the rate increase, to rebuild the reserves in case there is a hurricane or storm that damages the marina to that extent. Right now they're depleted because of the construction. This will expedite them being built back up.
Will you report back to us and let us know after these rates go in place that how we're doing on that wait list?
Sure.
Thank you.
So Rob, I understand on the previous slide, these are rates that you're considering going up to, or the rates that we already voted in?
The rates that you were shown on the chart are the rates that will be instituted pending your approval. So we haven't established these yet. This is what the proposed rate increases will be.
And we discussed that earlier at a regular commission meeting. So is this the opportunity, if we wanted to change the rates even more? Am I in the right setting for that or not?
If you would, if you are of the opinion that the proposed rate increases are not where you want to be, if you want to go higher.
Can you put the
than
rate
that,
slide up
those-
again, please?
yeah. You can certainly give us some input and feedback on that.
Yeah.
So the proposal for October 1 would be the middle column of the 17, 20, 20, and 22. That would be where we would go to from the current rates.
Got it. And is this a time that to consider Commissioner McGurk's idea that you come up with a priority sequencing of resident, non-resident, stuff like that? Have you got something in your head?
So we can institute that. So the way the waiting list works, we call in the summer, I believe it's June 1, we re-up the waiting list. So our marina manager gets an application from everybody who's still interested, and we either keep you on the list or you fall off, we replace you or whatnot. We can create a different structure for that waiting list. That's no problem. That's just something we would do administratively.
Yeah, just bring it to us when you get it, figured out. I don't know if it's one for one or what.
I have no problem creating that type of structure if that's of the interest of the commission. So we can.
Is the desire to give residents preference over non-residents? I'm assuming that's what you're saying.
I
certainly
that's
agree.
That's a decision.
Well, I certainly agree with that, and we can implement that policy right away.
We should have a robust discussion. I don't want to derail the budget, but that's why I'm asking. If this is the appropriate spot, I'm happy to camp here and do some of that work right now.
Well, from what I'm hearing, that's your desire, so
Let me
not
add
for
that.
Commissioner Perrine, no, okay.
The only, I think it should come back to us, because I think that one of the issues is going to be what's the definition of a resident. A lot of people have a New Smyrna Beach address, but my feeling is the idea that you're paying taxes and you live in the city, you're a citizen of the city. So that people who live in the county but have a New Smyrna address are not necessarily going to be on this list. But that's something we're going to have to take up. So that's why I think now's not the time to get into it. It needs to be, staff should bring it back at some other time.
On the order.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Perrine.
So I love that you're doing this, and I agree with everything that's said. The only thing that I'm going to elaborate on is don't go less than this when you do the residents, go up, because we've got this built in our budget. We need it for our reserves. That's a high-risk marina with hurricanes, and if you keep it like this for residents but go up for non-residents, if you do anything, we don't want to reduce what you've already got in here.
So, Commissioner Perrine, I want to clarify the chart. I want to make sure you understand what the chart is. So this chart incorporates both residents and non-residents already. So the top row is an NSB resident, and then the second row is also an NSB resident. So those rates would reflect, so we have fixed and floating docks. Those would be the rates we would charge to the residents already, and then the bottom two would be the non-resident rates.
So I got it now. Top two are residents, bottom two are not.
Correct.
And the increases are within a few points of each other. Is there any appetite for increasing the non-resident rates past what they are right now? Ms. Ma'am?
Yeah, we've had a bit of this discussion over the golf course, but it's clear that we need to define, and I think for golf course and here, what is the NSB resident? We need a definition of that. So I don't ask for it here, I'm asking when we bring it back, because I think that that question comes up in a number of areas.
Well, if you're going to pull the trigger in September, you're going to have that definition before you pull the trigger.
So how I've operated at the golf course is, so we have the resident discount, which is a $3 discount per round for residents. How we've operated before, and we've also done this for other leisure services activities, when you sign up for summer camp or Little League or whatnot, we have a resident, non-resident rate. If you have a New Smyrna Beach address, but you are paying taxes to the city, that defines you as a resident. And we have a database in our system called RecTrack that when you put your address in, it tells you if you're incorporated or not. So it has a listing of all the incorporated addresses. So if your address hits, you're a resident. You qualify for the discount. If it doesn't hit, then you're not a resident. You have to pay the non-resident rate.
That's great.
Okay, so we exclude both Edgewater and unincorporated addresses that have a mailing address of New Smyrna, but are actually not in our tax district.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, my recommendation is start with one, like the marina, because you got a lot of old timers who've been doing this a long time. So I would say that my recommendation would be let's start with the marina, and then going back to the rates, I think that, I think that I'm comfortable with this, or I'm comfortable with maybe a little more of an increase, but we're gonna have to see where that equilibrium is. We gotta test that market condition.
So-
And that's not necessarily gonna be done with one increase.
We always like your view, Rob. You're the closest guy. You're the guy running it. So tell us what you think. Because I'm ready to up the non-resident rate for both the floating docks and the fixed docks.
So my original plan had a stair step of a little bit in 26, a little bit in 27, a little bit in 28. And these, what you're looking at right now for the 26 rates on the slide is what the 28 rates would have been. So the reason I had the stair step was to kind of ease into the plan. As you can see, these are significant increases of 38, 49, and 53%. I am confident we can fill the marina with these rates, but I also am cognizant of a very large increase going over, less than thrilled about a very large increase to our tenants.
But they're within competitive rates.
They are.
Okay. So we're gonna get a lot of complaints from people, but we've gotta be ready to explain to them what's going on. It's competitive rate.
What's your will? You happy with what he's done to increase, or would you like to change it anymore?
I think his continuing to stair step through the years going forward is a good idea. This is going to be, when you look at it, like if you have a 10-foot boat, that's $170, right? Increase?
Yes, so our minimum footage for a vessel is 28 foot at the marina.
Okay, so that's a quite substantial monthly for the minimum size boat.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I would go with this increase this year and then step it up next year and the year after. This is a pretty hefty percentage increase.
I would concur with Vice Mayor Martin, I would like to implement this proposal and measure the success and potentially look at another stair step for 27, another stair step for 28, depending on the results that this delivers.
Okay. You're the closest guy
I have a
to it.
question. Are transient rates on here?
Transient rates are not in this plan. We adjusted transient rates this fiscal year.
How much are they?
Transient rates they're like $2 a foot, and it's a daily fee.
Okay, so what's?
So it's the daily, the $2 is based off the term of your stay. So it can either be from 1 to 7 days is a specific rate, about $2. Then it's 7 to 30 days is another rate for like $1.75, and then it's like $1 for over 90 days, or there's like 4 different rates between $1, $25, and $2.
And this chart is what, yearly? A term of a year?
This chart, they're charged monthly.
Monthly by foot.
Monthly by foot.
But you don't have to commit to anything but a month.
These are for 12 months. So we have a contract with all of our annual leases that renews in October.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I just
Yes,
want
sir. Go right
I just
ahead.
want to keep talking. Do we have a concept of competing with the Eastern Seaboard? Considering that half the world is moving here, and probably a substantial amount of people have boats. I mean, I just quickly looked up just average rates up north, and they're 5 to 8 times as much as what we're listing here. And that would indicate to me that we might be leaving money on the table that we could.
So I have not price comparisoned marinas out of the eastern central Florida area. I mean, we include St. Augustine, we had Palm Coast, Daytona, Titusville, some NSB marinas. So I haven't expanded out to the eastern seaboard. I certainly can.
Well, the whole idea is that if we're all listening to how great New Smyrna Beach is. If that's true, I would raise the non-resident. I would raise the transient rate. I would keep the resident the same.
What I can do, if it's the commission's wish or desire, I can come up with a expedited, updated draft of what a update to both the transient and the annuals can be, and work that through the city manager's office to bring back at a meeting prior to the turn of the fiscal. We will have to do it's in a resolution to update the marina fees, so I'll have to have that in probably in September, so I can turn something around working off this, but including the transients with that.
Love the idea. I think it'd be great to have a fulsome discussion deeper than this, and in the name of expediency, we probably need to do something.
Just a quick one. Could we show what that amounts to? Let's see, you said the minimum's a 28 foot. So what do these increases mean to that 28 foot or to the largest vehicle, to several of the sizes that you can dock there?
Sure.
And not now, but in terms of when you bring it back, so that we can see in real dollars what a 53% increase looks like, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's good. I think that's a good way to do a fulsome discussion. That we have been under the market for decades is interesting, and now the awakening. And so the question that you are pondering back to us is, hey, I'm already jacking this up pretty good. I'm certainly going to take some heat for it. How much is worthy? And then from the capitalist perspective, Commissioner Ashley says, hey, it's New Smyrna. So somewhere in the middle, we'll have to get there. And so it's probably better for you to take your time, study it, figure it out. At the same time, figure out what your order would be of giving precedence to residents, if it's all residents over any, or if it's a 1 to 2 or whatever. But anyway, not to put you on the spot here today and do instant calculations. Yes, ma'am.
The only thing I think if I had a boat out there and I saw that the bathrooms now are remodeled and all this money has been put in, like you've done $450,000 worth of work last year, I'd expect to pay more. So I think you'll be fine with this, whatever you decide to bring to us.
For reference, I sent out a survey to the 34 annual tenants via SurveyMonkey over the last, and at the end of May, to get some feedback on improvements, what they see at the marina, what would they like, what type of amenities do you need. So I've been working through the feedback we received with the marina manager to accommodate some of those requests. And my philosophy has been, if we're going to increase the rates, you need to be able to see something, see some improvements for what you're getting. Why am I paying more? I can't just deliver the same product. And, it helps balance those expectations and balance that feedback we're going to receive with the rate increase.
Very good. I think we drained that one pretty doggone well. All right. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Perhaps lunch, it's getting late, might be a good stopping point if you guys are hungry. I know these guys are hungry.
Perfect. It's here, and it's in the room. And how much time would you like to spend doing that?
20 minutes? I don't know. What do people
Your
like?
20 minutes?
I could do a working lunch.
20 minutes. Be
20 minutes. Okay, very good. All right, so we'll tick it up again here at 12:45.